Good evening, councillors, staff, ladies and gentlemen in the gallery and those listening at home. Please be seated while Deputy Mayor Adam Hort delivers the blessing. Thank you.
Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for bringing us all here safely tonight. I ask that you bless this city, its staff and our residents. Please give us wisdom while we make important decisions for our city and its residents. In your name, amen.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Before we begin, I will acknowledge that we are meeting on the traditional lands of the Whadjuk Noongar people and pay our respects to their elders, both past and present. It is now 7:04 and I declare the meeting open. Announcement of visitors. We have former Mayor, Mrs Olwen Searle in the gallery. Welcome, Mrs Searle. Disclaimer. Members of the public are cautioned against taking any action on council decisions on items in which they may have an interest until such time as they've seen a copy of the minutes of the meeting or have been advised in writing by city staff. Record of attendance. Everybody is here. Councillor Adams joining us online. Disclosures of interest. Are there any? No disclosures of interest. Thank you.
Islam.
Do you have a disclosure of interest, Councillor Islam?
Yes. Councillor Islam's.
We got it here?
Yes, Madam Mayor. I declared this to the CEO on one of these grant application in there. I'm the volunteers for the organising.
Sorry, just which items it regarding, Councillor Islam? Take a minute. 13.4.2.
Yes, thank you.
13.4.2. And it's just a impartial interest?
Yes, please. Yep.
Thank you. Okay. No announcements by the presiding member. Any reports of delegates? No? Thank you, councillors. We'll move on to item 6.1, question time. So a range of questions from Mrs Susan Game. If you'd like to come forward, Mrs Game. She's...
Maybe we should take the others and then we can do at the end.
I've already asked her now. She's from Tamby Court in Southern River. Yeah. Yeah. Councillors, Mrs Game has a number of questions regarding the item of the Madison Street tree, and normally we would only allow 3 questions, as you know, but I'm allowing more questions in this case so that Mrs Game has clear response to her questions. Thank you. Go ahead with your questions.
Thank you. Thank you, councillors, for your time. I would say that I'm not expecting detailed answers to all of these questions right tonight. I really don't want to take up hours and hours of time. That wasn't my intention. And of course, I'm really feeling very strange here, never having been in such a situation before. All of my questions are really seeking alternatives to the rather fantastic proposals that your CEO has gone through with roundabouts and all sorts of things. They really are asking, are those projected costs stand alone and accountable to one tree, or are they in fact quite a few of those costs would be incurred in any event within the widening of the road and your business park and everything else that you have to do? So do you really want me to read each one out and wait for an answer?
If you would like a response now, that would be what would be required. If you're happy to have something in writing, you might want to read them out now, I guess, since they're here and in front of us.
Okay, I am sorry. I apologise a little bit here because it is long-winded. I wasn't really sure what the situation was going to be, and I just wrote everything down, to be honest, what I was thinking.
Thank you.
Okay, number 1. Is the access to Southern River Business Park via the proposed New Gilders Road off Madison Street the main or only access to the park? And what other roads are planned to access the business park from Southern River Road? Now, I have only just yesterday seen a detailed plan of the business park, and I have now seen that Madison Road has got 2 other proposed roads on it, one being Tuffin and one or Severn. So there are 2 other roads being proposed off of Madison. So that, in fact, answers my question for me.
To your question, would you like to move on to number 2?
Yeah, I didn't realise. Would City of Gosnells consider no access from Madison Street? I think. Now we've seen there's other two roads, perhaps that question is irrelevant. What is the cost to the City of Gosnells to encase the ATCO gas main along Madison Street, along with above and underground infrastructure and repair? CEO mentions casing for the length of the development, but the road will be widened all along its length, will it not?
So I'll get the Director to respond to that question. Director Glover, please, thank you.
Oh, am I allowed to just get a pen and...
I'm more than happy to provide.
This is recorded. This is recorded for you, so you'll get it in writing as well.
Through you, Madam Mayor, I'm quite happy to provide with this list.
I'm not doing the right thing. Right.
Thank you, Director.
Okay, question 3, wasn't it?
Yes.
Yes. Through you, Madam Mayor, the current design requires a high-pressure gas main to be wrapped, protected at the Gilders Approach intersection. The cost in is order of $200,000 to $300,000 and is a cost to the development. The City is still negotiating with ATCO with respect to the other sections of Madison Street.
Okay, your next question, number 4.
Right. What is the cost to the City of Gosnells to widen the road, including the construction and protection of underground and above-ground infrastructure, not including them separate from the gas main?
Okay, thank you, Director Glover.
Through you, Madam Mayor, the estimated cost of upgrading Madison Street.
Sorry?
The estimated cost of constructing Madison Street, which is approximately 130 metres long, exclusive of the gas main, is in order of $750,000.
Thank you. Question 5.
Ah, yes. Is the cost of points 3 and 4 included in the budget for the business park?
Director Glover, thank you.
Through you, Madam Mayor, yes.
Yes.
The 6.
Are ratepayers funding the road widening and the gas main, or is there a state government grant being sought?
Director Glover, thank you.
Through you, Madam Mayor, no, the road widening is a cost to the development. There are no grants available for that.
Thank you. And I'll
So-
just say that Director Glover will be answering all of your questions to save reintroducing him.
Oh, no problem.
Question number 7.
Okay, so sorry, the answer to that was that it's part of the business park budget. Yes? Yes. Is the City of Gosnells going to compensate the residents of Madison Street for the loss of value of their property because of the proposed main road and business park development?
Madam Mayor, no. Generally, improvements to the road environment and nearby development increase the value of nearby property.
Increase it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Question 8, thank you.
So you believe that this is going to increase the value of the property?
Sorry, Mrs Game, it's direct question answer.
Sorry, I can't hear it very well. I beg your pardon.
It's okay.
Has the City of Gosnells taken into account the degradation to the lifestyle of their rate-paying residents on Madison Street and surrounds of this new main road, Madison, with huge increases in traffic and consequent danger and pollution?
Thank you, Director Glover. If you would like to speak up a little bit so Mrs Game could hear, thank you.
Yeah, happy to do that. The development is progressing in accordance with the local structure plan, and Madison Street is being upgraded from a rural standard to an urban standard as befits its status as an urban distributor road. It is noted that much of the current increase in traffic is associated with the land development, that is, construction traffic.
Thank you. Question 9.
So the answer to that is no. Right. 9. How is the survey by ATCO progressing? What is the time frame for this work?
Madam Mayor, it is anticipated that the works associated with the intersection will progress between July and September 2024.
Is there going to be costs associated with awaiting approvals and other delays associated with the encasing of the gas main?
Madam Mayor, there is no anticipated additional costs associated with the protection of the gas main by ATCO.
So you're not expecting any delays on the progress of your business park
It's
because of this?
No, we're anticipating the project will complete on schedule.
referring to the CEO's option 3, where he states that 5 trees would need to be removed. But is not City of Gosnells having to remove all the trees and vegetation along the verge of Matteson Street to accommodate the road widening and gas main issues?
Thank you, Director Glover.
Through you, Madam Mayor. As has been demonstrated in Webster Park, which is a park inside the development, the City will retain local native vegetation where it is practical. It is noted that the City has retained 23% of the site as public open space when it was obligated to retain less than half of this.
Right. So is the trees and vegetation along the verge next to the gas main, is a lot of that going to be retained or has it all got to go? That was my question.
Through you, Madam Mayor, I can't answer that question exactly. We will keep what we can that is practical.
Don't know. Okay.
Number 12.
Number 12, referring to the CEO's option 3, potential cost of 3.25 million for a roundabout, has consideration been given to traffic lights?
Thank you, Director Glover.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Main Roads WA would not support traffic signals at this intersection as there is insufficient traffic to warrant the provision or cost.
Okay.
So no.
All right, not. Okay. I have got another question that's not attached to this, and it was number 13 basically, sorry. It's to do with the Tuffin or 7th Street. Would City of Gosnells consider using Tuffin or the other street, I think it's to the east, as an access to the business park, and therefore then just shutting off your Gilders Street behind the tree? So you've got two other accesses available or planned on your plan to the business park. Why do you need to have Gilders Street
we understand
straight
the
through the
question.
tree?
We understand the question. Thank you.
Through you, Madam Mayor, there's two reasons. Firstly, there is the access of the lots that are currently on Gilders Approach, who would no longer have that access directly onto Matteson Street. And secondly, the other two accesses are part of a different development to the city. There is no guarantee that that development would go ahead in whatever time frame in the future. So that's why we wouldn't be considering either of those two.
Well, it would be nice if you could liaise with other people and maybe reduce the work.
Thank you, Mrs. Game. Your next question?
Oh, that's it from me.
I thought
as
you
it
had
were.
4 other questions that you wanted to ask.
Pardon?
You've got 4 other questions you wanted to ask.
Yes. Question 1. Has the City worked closely with ATCO and all other parties in order to consider the community-initiated motion to protect the healthy landmark tree and the independent consulting archaeolog, I can't pronounce that, report that the Eucalyptus grandis verge tree should be retained?
I'll get the CEO to respond to that question. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. ATCO Gas requires their gas main to be protected, and the best way to achieve this is to relocate the gas main around the tree. ATCO Gas provided this advice and gave very broad cost estimates for the work.
Question 2. If the tree were to be protected within a roundabout, which I actually don't think is viable, is it? By a tree protection zone as per Australian standards, would there be any reason for ATCO to concrete encase the gas pipes in the TPZ where there should be no impact from traffic?
Thank you. The CEO will answer that question. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The gas main serves the vast majority of Southern River and Bletchley Park, so it's a very important main, and ATCO Gas has advised that the roundabout design would require the full realignment of the main to protect it.
Thank you. Next question.
Question 3. Have ATCO and other parties provided the City with written confirmation of the feasibility cost savings if the tree were to be retained as recommended by the Jonathan Epps and consistent with the Australian standards for the protection of trees on development sites?
Thank you.
Madam Mayor, what I can say is the city has received advice from ATCO about the potential costs involved in realigning the gas main, which is their preference, their requirement.
Sorry, what was that? I didn't hear it properly, sorry.
Which is their requirement.
From ATCO regarding the costs, which is what they require us to do in order to do the development.
Yes. Question 4, the last one. To what extent would the proposed entry road to the park via a roundabout encroaching to some extent on the other side, on the corner side of the development, be an unviable alternative if it resulted in the retention of a landmark tree, as well as an area of green space with garden seating and public art as an entry statement to the business park?
And Mr CEO will answer that, thank you.
Madam Mayor, there are multiple options possible to save the tree. They just come at a very considerable cost.
Sorry?
Multiple options to save the tree, it's just that they come at a considerable cost, as mentioned in the report.
Okay.
Thank you, Mrs Game. I'll move on to Tim Parks of 61 Madison Street. Thank you. If you'd like to come forward and ask your question. Oh. Do you have your question?
No,
You're all
just in
good?
general terms, without being too specific, what is a development contribution plan? What is it and how will it affect me if I live in Madison Street?
Okay, I'll get Director Terrell Link, he's Director of Planning, to answer your question. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. There was a couple of minutes of notice to give an indication of your address, Mr Barks. So I've had a quick look at the structure plan there. The contribution arrangement is really intended to provide for the sharing of major infrastructure works in subdivision areas equitably between landowners. So your property is in Southern River Precinct 3D, and some of that area is subject to subdivision and a little structure plan at the moment, and some of it has not been planned as yet because it's in the noise buffer area around the kennel, as you may know. So the types of development that can be approved in the noise buffer are limited significantly by the Environmental Protection Authority. So the structure plan's not in place as yet with some proposed uses, but when it is, this arrangement will provide for the equitable sharing of costs and reimbursement of the major infrastructure that you would be part of delivering, or whoever owns your property at the time. You're welcome to talk to our future planning team at any time if you wanted to talk specifically about your property.
Maybe I'm a bit thick.
We'll give you a contact number that you can have a ring and have a longer discussion with if you like after. Thank you. The next questions are from Mr Leon Walker from Stafford Road in Kenwick. Thank you, Mr Walker.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. My questions relate to item 13.1.1 on the agenda. Are councillors elected to represent the interests of all residents, ratepayers and electors of the City of Gosnells?
Yes, they are.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Is the retention of the eucalyptus tree opposite 31 Madison Street at a cost of approximately $3 million in the interests of all residents, ratepayers and electors of the City of Gosnells?
It's a difficult question to answer, Mr Walker, but I would say that's to each and everyone's own personal opinion on that one.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. If Council votes to not retain the tree, would Council be prepared to consider a proposal by parties interested in retaining the tree to finance its retention, perhaps by crowdfunding?
That is something Council could consider.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. There are no further questions. I'll move on to public statement time, which we have Mrs. Susan Game to do a public statement. You may come forward and do your public statement, Mrs. Game.
I must be a little bit deaf. I'm very sorry.
It's a public statement regarding item 13.1 on page 3 of the agenda.
Okay. I think I'm not going to talk, obviously, much to your relief, I should imagine. I'm not going to read through my entire statement. I've sent it round to everybody. I've been variously sentimental, maybe a little bit rude, but I'm pointing out that this huge road that you're putting in here is not in everybody's interest at all. And I've put forward, at least I've seen 2 other roads going off Matteson, so there's further things to be considered. It's no good putting extraordinary figures on wonderful schemes to save the tree if you don't really mean that at all. So I am really and truly just asking that council don't make a decision to disregard the elector's motion at this meeting, but that the motion be allowed to lay on the table until further information is to hand in regard to the gas main, its effect on the rose gum and other trees in the vicinity, all questions answered in full and alternatives considered.
Thank you, Mrs. Game. Moving on now to, there are no other public statements, so we'll move on to the confirmation of minutes. Can I get a mover? Deputy Mayor Hort to move that and Councillor McDonald to second that. Is there any debate or questions on the minutes, councillors? No? If you could please cast your vote by a show of hands. Thank you. Thank you, that has been carried. Number 8, receiving of petitions and presentations. Are there any? No, thank you, councillors. Are there any applications for leave of absence? No, thank you. There are no questions of which due notice has been given. No items to be brought forward. We'll move on to item number 13.1.1, the response to the resolution from the annual electors meeting. Can I get a mover for this, please? Councillor Dewhurst to move and a seconder. Councillor Baines to second. Councillor Dewhurst, would you like to speak to this item?
Thanks, Madam Mayor. Look, I've had to make some notes. The reason being is I want to try and keep on track and not talk about the significance of the trees in our area. But I've had to take the heart away and think of the head. So, look, I totally understand why people want to save this tree. Okay, it's a giant, it's healthy, it looks nice, but there's one thing: it's not a WA-based tree, and we've got a road project that needs to happen. That is a high-pressure gas main underneath it. The tree will be going in probably 5 or so many years anyway, if we didn't remove it, because if nothing was going to happen, if we didn't do the development, the tree would have gone anyway, because ATCO would have come in and eventually taken it out, and we wouldn't have had a say in it. So I've broken my reasons down. Firstly, non-native species impact. The Eucalyptus grandis is majestic, but it's not native to our state. There is a reason why Mother Nature didn't put those trees around here. We should listen to Mother Nature. Its presence does not contribute significantly to our local biodiversity, which thrives on plant species indigenous to Western Australia. Financial implications. The costs associated with preserving a single native tree, estimated at $3 million, due to the need to rely on high-pressure gas main, I don't believe is justifiable or accountable to our ratepayers. These funds could be more effectively allocated to a broader environment conservation effort or the community services. Development needs. The road construction project serves significant public interest, improving infrastructure and accessibility for our community. Its completion should not be hindered by prohibitive costs related to preserving one non-native tree. Environmental compensation through native planting. I propose that we compensate for the trees removal by planting multiple native trees instead. The initiative will not only preserve but enhance our local ecosystems, supporting native wildlife and promoting biodiversity. Introduction of the green infrastructure. Along with tree planting, I advocate for the implementation of a ground level cockatoo station and at least 2 pole generated water stations. These initiatives will integrate seamlessly with our urban landscape, promoting wildlife conservation and sustainability of energy use, making our development project as Green Star rated endeavour. Safety and risk management. The proximity of the Eucalyptus grandis as a high pressure gas main has undeniable safety risks. Its removal mitigates potential hazards, ensuring the well-being of the community. Long-term vision. While the immediate loss of the tree is regrettable, our focus on planting native species and implementing a green infrastructure projects in that area would lay the foundation for a suitable, biodiverse and resilient community. Protection against ecological threats. It is well documented that non-native species can introduce diseases and pests detrimental to local flora. By advocating for a policy that prioritises the planting of native trees, we protect our unique ecosystems from such threats, ensuring the health and longevity of our native plant species. Let's follow what Mother Nature's done. Promotion of local biodiversity identity. Emphasising native species in our urban landscape reinforces our regional identity, connects our community with the natural environment, and fosters a collective responsibility towards conservation. Education and community engagement. This could serve as a platform to educate our community about the importance of native biodiversity, engaging them in conservation efforts and fostering a deeper connection with our natural heritage. I get it, every tree in our area means something to us, but no doubt about that. But when it comes to this particular tree, maybe it's okay to say goodbye. If we use this chance to plant more of our native trees and roll out some green projects, we're actually making a smart move for both the city growth and taking care of our planet. It's like hitting two birds, one stone, fixing our roads and boosting our local green scene. Mrs. Games has brought up some really good arguments, and I'd love to sit here and support and hold this tree there, but I don't think we can actually do it. But I don't see this as actually as a lost cause if the tree does go, because I think we can put pressure on, well, there's enough pressure on council now to actually do a better initiatives in regards to greening and putting in a ground level cockatoo stations, as well as maybe pole ones as well. Not only just for cockatoos, but all the other species as well. So I think we can look at that. Thanks, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Dewhurst. Councillor Baines? Anyone else having? Councillor Williamson, thank you.
Thank you. I'd just like a point of clarification. Is Councillor Dewhurst proposing some amendments or changes to our plans?
So he was just suggesting that something that might happen in the future.
Just maybe it's a discussion we can have afterwards in regards to the other stuff, no amendments.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. It was wonderful seeing our council come together when this first came to light in a workshop and essentially ask what I would have considered 1,000,001 questions of our city staff, and rightly so. How can we save this tree? We looked at every single different combination and permutation of options to see how it can be done. And I think we even came up with some ideas that the city staff hadn't considered as well. So I think from my perspective, we don't want to remove a tree like this, but I don't think we have a choice. I think it has to be done. It's an enormous amount of money that could possibly plant thousands of trees, even if not tens of thousands of trees, which would not be for the benefit of the city. But I want to give some assurance to the community that all these things have been considered from what I can see. And many of the questions that were asked here tonight were ones that us councillors had asked of the city when we originally had our workshop. So I just want to reflect on that, make sure that's really clear, because I don't see that necessarily documented anywhere, that we have tried and tested the system to see what and if this tree can be saved. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Is there any further? Councillor Good, thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Listening to Councillor Dewhurst's very powerful comments, and I understand them entirely, and also with Deputy Mayor Hort's comments there, I actually get where you're coming from there. We've certainly explored all options, researched it very well, and quite frankly, I can't think of anybody in this room who doesn't want to save a tree. I would cut one down at the absolute barest if I had to, meaning you don't want to. Most people want to retain them. The amount of effort gone to by executive and staff has been absolutely brilliant, and again I concur with Deputy Mayor Hor's comments. We've all explored every possible idea to save a very large tree. But the reality is this, We are looking at $3 million. By any stretch of the imagination, it is uneconomic. It is a significant actual waste of ratepayers' money. It's simply unviable, as mentioned in the report. But I do want to come to a comment that Deputy Mayor Hort raised in terms of what other trees are being planted, and it's a very good comment, because in our annual report, we planted 232,387 native seedlings, 9,668 trees were planted in the public realm, and we actually did 2,843 tree works actioned. That's in our annual report. That's a significant number of trees and plants. $3 million could do a lot of work to do a lot more, which is my point is you've got to go for the greater good. So I will simply say, again, well done to the council staff. I support the recommendation. We have explored every opportunity we can to save a tree. And by the way, in those trees planted, one of them would have been my house tree. So all I know is we do our best and we've listened attentively. But the reality is we have to get the business park done and the tree needs to be removed. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Good. Is there any further debate on this item, councillors? I would just make comment as well in that I can assure you that I don't want to remove a tree where I don't have to remove a tree, and I know I've had lots of conversations with Mrs Game, and I do want to thank her for bringing forward her voice on this. And I would actually have a question for the CEO in that what assurances do we have that on city projects and developments going forward in the future, would we make all effort to retain trees of this magnitude and develop around them? I know that we did forego other areas in order, well, we retained other areas in order to forego this tree, but moving forward, could we have some guarantee that this wouldn't, or that we would definitely be taking trees of this magnitude into account going forward?
You certainly can, Madam Mayor.
Yeah. Thank you. I'm sure that we will all hold you to that, Mr CEO and Director of Planning. So I will be supporting the officer's recommendation on this, as much as if some miracle were to occur in the next few weeks, then we would still have time to look at that, I guess. But as it stands now, I would be supporting the officer's recommendation. Councillor Dewhurst, do you have a question? Close debate, thank you. Unless there's any further debate? No? Councillors, thank you. Councillor Dewhurst.
Thanks, Madam Mayor, for asking the CEO that question. However, I got a little bit upset when you asked the question because, and the reason is I felt for the staff because they take every perceivable course of action to try and save trees. I've had discussions over the last 12 years with them, and their last alternative is to remove a tree. So they do that, and you raising it again reinforces it. So I do like that. That part didn't hurt. But councillors, the reason I think we know where this may go in regards to the recommendation of the staff, and I'd like to thank Councillor Williamson for making the point that it was I bringing up amendments, whatever. But I'm not making amendments because these are suggestions that I'm sure the staff will take into consideration, and there's a very good organisation around here that does black cockatoos who can certainly help with the ground watering stations. Excellent place, I heard. Anyway, so thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Dewhurst. Councillors, could you please cast your vote by show of hands? Thank you. Thank you, councillors. That is carried. Moving on to item 13.2.1, the annual review for the Development Contribution Plan reports. Can I get a mover for this? Councillor Good to move. Deputy Mayor Hort to second. Councillor Good, do you have any debate or questions on this item? Councillor Deputy Mayor Hort. Any further debate or questions on this item? No. Councillors, will you please cast your vote? Thank you. Thank you. That has been carried. Moving on to 13.2.2, the development application for the amendment to the Hotel, Restaurant and Reception Centre at 40 Lot 502 Atfield Street, Maddington. Can I get a mover? Councillor Williamson to move that. Councillor Betts to second that. Councillor Williamson? Councillor Betts? Any? Councillor Good and then Councillor Dewhurst. Thank you. That was quick.
Thank you, Mayor Lyons. Appreciate the opportunity to speak. I just think it's great that it's come back in terms of a change in the way it's going to be done, but bigger and better as far as the angles. I know that parking and the fact it's double storey, I'm just very supportive of it, and I'm hoping it can be constructed as quickly as possible. I support it.
Councillor Dewhurst, thank you.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. Look, I just want to make the comment that I'm going to support the motion, obviously. I have some reservations, though. I really do think we should have had a discussion with the people that objected to the proposal originally. I just think it's just a decent thing to do. It's a shame that we haven't, but I will be supporting this tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Dewhurst. And I just have a question for Director Terrelink. The people that objected to it originally, their main objections were to parking issues, my understanding. Would that be correct?
That's right, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. And this new plan actually gives more parking, is that correct?
That's right. It's almost the same. It's a couple of bays to the good.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions or debate on this item, councillors? No, if you could please cast your vote. Thank you. Thank you, that has been carried. Moving on to 13.4.1. History and Heritage Advisory Group meeting on the 1st of February 2024. Can I get a mover, Deputy Mayor Hort, to move this, Councillor McDonald to second it? Any debate or questions on this item? No, councillors, please cast your vote. Thank you, that has been carried. 13.4.2, Grants Program Festival and Events. This is the one that Councillor Islam has an impartial disclosure on it, but he is still able to vote. So can I get a mover for this, please? Councillor Adams to move it, Councillor Williamson to second it. Is there any questions or debate on this item? Nope, okay. Councillors, please cast your vote. Thank you. Thank you, that has been carried. 13.5.1, the Financial Activity Statement for January 2024. Can I get a mover? Councillor Good to move this, Councillor Baines to second. Councillor Good, Councillor Baines. Any further debate or questions? No? Councillors, please cast your vote. Thank you. Thank you, that has been carried. 13.5.2, the Payment of Accounts for January 2024. Can I get a mover for this? Councillor Lloyd to move this. Councillor Dewhurst to second. Any questions or debate? Councillor Lloyd? No. Councillor Dewhurst? No. Anyone else? No. Thank you. Please cast your vote. Thank you. That has been carried. 13.5.3, the budget variation for reimbursements from the Southern River Precinct 3 and 3A North Outline Development Plan Reserves. Can I get a mover for this? Councillor Adams to move this. Councillor Betts to second it. Any debate or questions on this item, councillors? No? If you could please cast your vote. Thank you. Thank you. That has been carried. Item 13.5.4, the budget variation for the reimbursement from the Southern River Precinct 3A North Outline Development Plan Reserve. Can I get a mover for this, please? Deputy Mayor Hort to move, Councillor Zhang to second. Any debate or questions, councillors? No? If you please cast your vote. Thank you. That has been carried. 13.5.5, the position statement for emergency management. Can I get a mover for this? Councillor Dewhurst to move, Councillor Betts to second. Councillor Dewhurst, no debate. Councillor Betts? Any other questions or debate on this item, councillors? No? If you please cast your vote. Thank you. Thank you. That has been carried. Item 13.5.6, the 2023 annual electors meeting. Can I have a mover, please? Councillor McDonald to move, Councillor Dalton to second it. Any questions or debate? Deputy Mayor Hort, thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. It was wonderful to see at the annual electors meeting the number of people that came and asked questions of the city. It was fantastic. I think it was a really, really worthwhile venture, and it's great to see more and more people feeling comfortable coming and asking questions at our annual electors meeting. Certainly in my 4 years, it's been interesting to watch the increase, and it's great to have more people there. I think, and this is just a challenge for us as a council and as a city, we need to think about how we make that opportunity available to people who can't speak or people who can't make it along to a council meeting. How do we give that same opportunity to ask those questions, to get them properly answered and to get them on the public record. How do we give that opportunity to carers? How do we give it to people with apraxia, aphasia? What we light up the colour blue on our lights once a year, an acknowledgement for people who can't speak. So what are we doing to give them a voice in our council? And I think that's something we need to consider into the future. I don't have an answer immediately other than changing our standing orders, but I think it's a challenge for us. And I just want to bring that to everyone's attention right now. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Mayor Hort, is there any further debate or questions on this item? Councillor Good, thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Very interesting comments from the Deputy Mayor, and you're quite right. A lot of people got to speak, and you're talking about those who can't speak. There may also need to be a debate about how long people can speak for, because if you're actually going to be doing this, it's the longest one, by the way, I've ever been involved in, but my point being is they can go for 3, 4 or 5 hours, just being mindful of, do we have to introduce how much time each person can speak? Because I'd hate to see somebody being here for 3 hours and they actually can't speak yet and they're waiting their turn. I thought, you poor person, you want to speak quicker. So just be mindful of what we actually do we need to do in the future, because that was a very well attended and the most words ever spoken, but a lot of people have their say. We may have to look about how we balance that out, that's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Good. Any further questions or debate on this item? No? Councillors, please cast your vote. Thank you. Thank you. That has been carried. Item 13.5.7, the tender for 21-2023 environmental maintenance. Can I get a mover for this, please? Deputy Mayor Hort, second by Councillor Williamson. Any questions or debate on this item? Councillors, please cast your vote. Thank you. It's been carried. Thank you. Item number 13.5.8, the panel for 04-2023 general landscaping works. Can I get a mover for this? Councillor Good to move this, Councillor Dalton to second this. Is there any debate or questions, councillors? No? If you could please cast your vote. Thank you. Thank you. That has been carried. There are no motions of which previous notice has been given. There is no urgent business. There is a...
It's urgent and confidential.
Thank you, Mr CEO. There is a confidential matter. Councillors, can I get a mover to close the meeting for confidential matter? Councillor...
Point of order, Madam Mayor. What's the process in regards to if as councillor or councillors don't want to have the matter heard as a confidential item?
You vote against closing it.
Vote against closing it? Fantastic.
Thank you. So Deputy Mayor Hort is that correct? Better make sure I'm right on that. Thank you. 1 second. I'm clear as mud on that. So Councillor Hort is moving to consider.
He's really voting on that first motion to consider.
Councillor Hort is voting on the first motion.
First motion, that it be considered by this.
Thank you, Councillor Hort. Is there a seconder to consider it?
It's urgent business, you need to...
It's a confidential matter. It's not an urgent business.
Well, it's both urgent and confidential. So
You second it, and then do we open the floor for debate on this, do we?
Well, you've got two motions, so you're not debating the item.
Right.
Firstly, you're debating, do you want to consider it at all? So that's the first issue. You've got to resolve that you want to consider it. If you don't, you don't. If you do that, then you vote on whether you want to consider it behind closed doors or not.
Thank you. So Deputy Mayor has moved it. Councillor Dewhurst has seconded it.
Yes.
Would you like to speak to that, Deputy Mayor Hort?
Madam Mayor, I think it'd be wonderful to consider this.
So, councillors, did you have anything further to add to this, to consider the item?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, I think we should consider it and have it open to the public.
Thank you, councillors. If you would like to vote on considering the item. Thank you. That has been carried. We now move on to the...
Councillor Williamson was against.
You voted against considering it? Okay, thank you. We now move on to considering whether we'd close this to the public. Can I get a mover for this, please? Deputy Mayor Hort is to move that and Councillor Islam is to second it. Do you want to speak to that? So you're wanting to close this to the public? Yes? Yep. And Councillor, anyone to speak against closing this to the public? Councillor Dewhurst.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. Actually, in all fairness, Councillor Islam seconded the motion, so he can speak before me.
If he wants to speak, yes. He hasn't indicated that he wanted to speak, so that's why I let you speak. Would you like to speak to this, Councillor Islam?
Thanks, Madam Mayor. I'm just very, very confused with the whole process. I'm not sure about the other councillor. So are we making it publicly available or not? I'm not sure, to be honest, where we are.
So this is what we've moved, and Deputy Mayor Hort has moved that we don't make it publicly available, and you seconded it. And
sorry,
now
then, this is my apology. I didn't.
you didn't want to second that? So
no.
can we go back to Deputy Mayor's moved it? Can I get a seconder for this item to close the item to the public? Councillor Adams is to second that.
I'd like to speak to it then.
Councillor Hort will speak to it. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Look, I normally wouldn't want every item to be confidential, but I think in this instance we haven't given the community time to come here and speak to this and to give us their perspective. So all of a sudden for us to thrust this out in the open, I think is a very different conversation entirely to one where we're considering what we're meant to do with this particular item. So I think I'm happy to go either way, but as far as I'm concerned, I think we're doing the wrong thing by the community who might have an interest in this, because they would have come here tonight if they knew it was going to happen and it hadn't been listed as confidential.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Hort. The seconder was Councillor Adams. Did you want to speak to this, Councillor Adams? No. Councillor Dewhurst, thank you.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. Look, I actually hear what the Deputy Mayor is saying, and I can appreciate what he's saying, but I just have to disagree. I think this particular matter is very important. That's something that could happen very, very soon, and I think that it's upon us as elected members to actually put our thoughts to the community and let them know whether we're going to support such a thing or not. So I think it's very important that we're transparent in this particular matter, or in all matters. But hand on my heart, this one needs to be going out to the public. Thank you.
Councillor Dewhurst. Councillor Williamson, thank you.
Thank you. I tend to agree with Councillor Dewhurst. I think it's very important that we show transparency in this decision. Whether someone's had a chance to come and speak to it tonight won't impact what the decision is. And if we close it, it wouldn't change whether they're here or not. So I think it's definitely in the best interest of council and in the best interest of the community for this to remain open to the public. And I don't agree that we have grounds to actually have this closed as confidential. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Williamson. Is there any further debate? Or Councillor McDonald, thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I actually concur with Deputy Mayor Hort's perspective on this. I think this is such a rushed and late item, and it's being considered to be now open that our community would ordinarily look at our agenda and see what is being discussed and debated and potentially submit a question or make a statement, and then they're being denied that opportunity if we don't close discussion. So I prefer to not. Thank you.
Councillor Dewhurst, thank you. Did you speak? Question, thank you.
Yes. Through you, Madam Mayor, to Director Bradbrook. We're currently drafting a motion at the moment. Are we currently drafting a motion at the moment that will address the broader aspects of this, where members of the public could actually come in and have their say in either the next OCM or the one after?
Thank you, Councillor Dewhurst.
Madam Mayor, I have been asked to assist in putting together a notice of motion to have this discussed at a future council meeting.
Yeah. Thank you. Are you happy with that? Yes, thank you. Councillor Betts, thank you.
Madam Mayor, I'm still in two minds as to which way to vote on this. I did arrive late at the workshop, so I may have missed something. But from reading this, I don't sense there's anything that impacts on any individual in a negative kind of way, whichever way we decide on this motion, and therefore I'm inclined to think it ought to be open because it doesn't impinge on anybody's reputation or cast slurs on anybody or suggest that somebody hasn't done the right thing or anything like that. So there's no reputational issue at all. And I kind of think this is stuff that the public should be able to hear our discussions on. So I said I was in two minds. I'm just trying to convince myself which way to vote on this at the moment. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Betts. I'm trying to convince myself too, so I'm still listening to debate. Thank you, Councillor Good.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. One of the things I've always found is most useful is when you're humming and ahhing of which way to go is you go back to the Chief Executive and the directors and say, what is the actual reason for it being confidential? They've put it there for a reason. We need to understand it clearly.
Thank you,
That's
and
the
that's
reason
a question.
you do. You ask questions like, why is it there?
Thank you, Mr. CEO. Will respond to your question.
Madam Mayor, there's a provision in the Local Government Act 523 which allows council to close a meeting if they're discussing issues which may affect local government property, and it was for that reason that was suggested that this item be confidential.
Happy with that? There's a debate on this. I don't want to end it. So if there's anyone else that wants to speak on this item, I will tell you as well that I'm torn between what to do here. My main concern is that the organisers requesting this have not had a chance to speak openly to us. And had they known it was not going to be confidential, they may have had that opportunity to speak to us, but they've been told it's a confidential item, so they haven't been able to come here to present to any of us on this item. So for that reason, I will be supporting the officer's recommendation to keep the item confidential. Thank you. Is there any further questions or debate on this item? Okay, councillors, if you would like to cast your vote, if you're supporting Councillor Hort's movement to close the debate, close the council meeting. Thank you. Okay, we have 1, 2, 3, 4 to close, so that has been lost. So the meeting will be open. Thank you. No? Yeah, he's closed. So 5, sorry, 5. Yes. So that has been lost, and the debate will continue open. Ladies and gentlemen, you may stay for the item. So 16.1, the request for permit to use the Gosnells Town Square and Pioneer Park Amphitheatre. Can I get a mover for this, please? Can I get a mover? Councillor Good to move it and to second it. Councillor Baines to second it. Councillor Good, would you like to speak to the item?
Yes, please, and thank you, Madam Mayor. Look, I'm in support of the staff recommendations. I do not have an issue with the whole process, and as long as, well, it'll come up with the proposed amendments, but that's coming through clearly. So, yeah, I'm in support of it, and they have a right to be there and to do what they need to do.
Thank you, Councillor Betts. Sorry.
Grant/not to grant, so you can't actually be supporting the staff.
Yes, so we're going to have to move. Yes, we're going to have to. That's going to be the first thing. So you've now spoken to it, so you can't move one of those. Yeah.
So which one are we actually going for? What's been moved?
Yep. So which one's number 1? Just give me 1 minute, please. Sorry.
No amendment has been moved.
No amendment has been moved.
The item's been put on the table, but now we need somebody to move to amend to either grant or not grant.
Sorry, can I just have a minute just to look through these documents here, because I've got a pile. I want to know which one's which. 3 of 4, 4 of 4, 1 of 4. Okay, that one. Okay. Who's the seconder of this item?
Councillor Baines.
Councillor Baines, would you like to speak to this item as the seconder? No. Deputy Mayor Hort, followed by councillor Williamson. A point of clarity. Go on. Not a point of order. Sorry, councillor Deputy Mayor Hort.
Point of clarity. Are we just discussing staff recommendation 1 of 4?
Yes, we are.
Thank
We're
you.
going to move them each on their own. Deputy Mayor Hort, thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I thought I was going to make the situation easier, but please tell me if I haven't, because I would like to raise an amendment now so that it can then be considered as we consider the grant or not to grant. If I may, Madam Mayor. Let me read the wording because it might not have to play out like that. So I, Councillor Adam Hawke, propose the following, that the staff recommendation be amended by adding the following part. Which staff recommendation, I guess we can liaise with the CEO. That council's issue of a permit under its local law is conditional upon the event organisers obtaining the necessary permit from police. For the following reason, to ensure the organisers are aware of the requirement to obtain a permit from the police.
Deputy Mayor Hort, I would request that you would hold off on that until after we deal with number 1 to see if it's actually going to be granted first. Thank you.
It may actually impact people's decision as to whether they want to grant or not grant, depending on that, if that amendment is in place. So that's why I thought I'd introduce it now.
Yes, okay.
Do you still
your
want?
point. I think we'll deal with number 1 first.
Your Worship.
So number 1 is what we're dealing with now. So we would need a mover to move number 1 if that was what was happening next. Councillor Dewhurst. I'm just going to move. I'm going to move staff recommendation 1 that we do grant a permit. Thank you, Councillor Abetz. Is there any debate on granting the permit? Councillor Dewhurst, thank you.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. Look, I've got some amendments on this because, and the reason I've got these, I bring these amendments up is because to me it's non-negotiable if these conditions they should be subject to these conditions. So, look, I know I talk about the cockatoos a lot, talk about the birds a lot, what I do, and my cows and all that sort of stuff. But you also got to take into context. I spent 21 years as a policeman. And my actual main job is in mining and agriculture. I work as a forensic investigator. So I go in and solve problems that companies have got, not cash flow problems, but reputational problems or risk problems from activist groups to threats on CEOs and stuff like that. That's what I do. So what I've done is I've actually done a risk assessment on 1,000 people turning up to our to the amphitheatre, and I did a risk assessment on that. I did a 7x7 risk assessment on it. I'm sure some here know what the 7x7 is. It actually goes down to a lot more detail on the 5x5. So I do have a number of conditions put on here for to either grant it or not grant it, because I can't make my decision unless I know this is going to come up. So the staff recommendation 1 of 4 to be amended by inclusion of the following additional comments. The environmental responsibility and the clean-up. The permit holder shall be, and I'm asking these as conditions to go on, that the permit holder shall be responsible for the complete clean-up of the venue immediately following the event conclusion. This includes, but not limited to, the removal of all waste, signage and any temporary structures or equipment brought to the event. A post-event inspection by the city staff will be conducted to ensure compliance, and any costs incurred by the city for additional clean-up will be charged to the permit holder. Do you want me to read them all out, or do you want me to go through them one by one? Okay, sorry.
Point of order, Madam Mayor. Isn't the reason my amendment wasn't permitted because it wasn't about number 1 and this is about number 2? Okay. We might not need to listen to it all then.
Sorry, your amendment starts with recommendation 2 be amended, and we haven't dealt with number 2 yet, so that comes into number 2 recommendation, not number 1. So you can probably read to the fact that you've got this and then hold on to it like the Deputy Mayor has, but every councillor has a copy of this. So if you don't want to read at this point in time, you can just let them know that you will be bringing this up when we talk about recommendation 2.
I fully appreciate that, Madam Mayor, but recommendation 1 is actually means, are we going to grant it or not grant it? Again,
Yeah.
it's either black or white for me. These conditions either go in and I'll approve it, grant it. If the conditions aren't going to be there or watered down or whatever, and I'm not happy with that, well, then I'm not going to grant it.
Okay, that's a good point. Should I move to deal with number 2? These staff, how they've written this out. Seriously, guys. I'm going to deal with recommendation 2 first, and then we'll come back to number 1 after that, I think would be best. Does anyone have any issues with that? And we'll come back to you with your item as well. Don't worry, you won't get...
Before we do the grant, not grant?
Yes. So let's go back to you for yours first, and then we'll come to yours. And can you write it differently next time? Thank you, you two. Thank you. Councillor Good, thank you.
Point of order, Madam Mayor.
Yes.
Would you like to take a 5-minute break to get it all sorted out?
No, I
in
think I've got it
organisation?
sorted now. Has everyone else got it? Like, we can take
okay.
Did you need a break, Councillor Good? You all right? Thank you, Councillor Good. Deputy Mayor Hort, if you would like to go, we're dealing with staff recommendation 2 of 4 at this stage.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So I've read out my proposed amendment. I believe it's had a seconder. I'm trying to remember where we got to.
We've started again. So
Start again. Would you like me to read it out, Madam Mayor?
Yes, go for it.
Thank you, Your Worship. I, Councillor Adam Hawke, propose the following, that the staff recommendation be amended by adding the following part. That Council's issue of a permit under its local law is conditional upon the event organisers obtaining the necessary permit from police. For the following reason, this is included in the minutes, but I'll elaborate, to ensure the organisers are aware of the requirement to obtain a permit from the police.
And can I just clarify that you would want that entered at point 3 of recommendation 2?
Yeah, anywhere in any of the staff recommendations. But yeah, it could be
Okay.
3, it could be the end of a very lengthy number.
We'll just put it at 3
Yep.
because you're first there. So
Perfect.
you're happy to second that? Did you want to speak further to that?
Yeah, look, Madam Mayor, I just want to say I'm in support of protesting. I think it is inevitable for government to have overreach. It's inevitable, statistically inevitable, for government to make the wrong decision. That's what happens. And as people, residents, citizens, we only have a few kind of recourses that we can follow. If you've got lots of money, you can go to the High Court. If you've got lots of money, you can run in a local election and become a state member or a federal member. Both of those take a very, very long time and a lot of resources and aren't for everyone. The third option you have is to protest. I'm not aware of any others unless you start getting violent. But protest is really the only way that you can, as a group, as a people, as citizens, say to the government, or say to the local institutions, we don't like what you're doing, and we don't feel that our voice is heard in any other way. So I'm completely in support of this. I think it's a fantastic idea. We need to put safeguards in place, though, because as a city, it's not our job to determine whether or not something is contentious or not. I believe it's our job to determine whether or not it's appropriate for us to lease out facilities for X, Y and Z. We have to protect, maintain those assets because they're the assets of the city, the assets of the residents and our citizens. And so we need to put safeguards in place for those. I think a really important safeguard in that is police and making sure that police are aware of the protest and that it's occurring. I have no reason to believe that in this case that they are unaware, but I think we need to build it into this so that we can make it clear hopefully in precedents as well, that's what we expect as a council, is that you at least have your police permission. And if the police remove or revoke that permission, then we shouldn't be giving permission either, because our partnership with them is essential. So for that reason, Madam Mayor, I propose this amendment to the staff recommendation.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Hort. Seconder, Councillor Good, would you like to speak to this? Thank you.
Yes, I will, Madam Mayor. Just to say I support those comments entirely. It's just logical, fair and reasonable in all respect.
Is there any other debate on Councillor Good's amendment? Councillor Dewhurst, thank you.
I'd like to speak in support of that and agree with most of what the Deputy Mayor said. I mean, I'm certainly one for free speech, but I don't believe that international incidents should actually be protested in the suburbs. But I do believe that if someone wants to protest for a tree or they want to protest about a road or something the city's not happy about, that's fine, but they don't come for us for permits. And the reason I say that is protests of international incidents create fear within the community. I know we're going to say there's no houses near there, but there are houses near there. They're going to hear this, all that. So yes, I do support protest, localised protests in local areas, but international protests should be actually held within the city and also the front of Parliament House. Thanks, Madam Mayor, but I'll be supporting this motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Is there any other debate or questions on the amendment? Okay, councillors, if you please cast your... Did you want to close, Councillor? Deputy Mayor Hort? No. Please cast your vote on the amendment, which will become part 3 of the recommendation 2 of 4. Thank you. That has been carried. So we now go back to the original one, which is part 2 of 4, where Councillor Dewhurst, thank you, would like to...
like I said, I did a risk assessment on 1,000 people gathering, whether it being contentious or not contentious, whatever. And as of that, out pops out your risk mitigation strategies. And these risk mitigation strategies, I believe we should have in approval if we go for approval. And what I'll do is after each one, I might just do the bit of blurb underneath on the how, because there will be some questions I think councillors will have after a couple of these, and I'll explain when I go through there. So the environmental responsibility and clean-up, councillors, I've already read that. Does anyone want to hear that again? No, good. Content and conduct. The permit holder must ensure that all speeches, banners, signs and any form of communication used or displayed during the event are respectful and free of hate speech, incitement to violence or any content that could be considered discriminatory or offensive based on race, religion, gender, sexual orientation or ethnicity. The city reserves the right to immediately revoke the permit and discontinue the event and any activities are found to be in violation of the condition. Now, if there is a violation of this, I don't expect the rangers to try and close it down. I just expect them to take notes, and then we can discuss that with the organisers at a later date. Or if we need to have it revoked because we're getting people hammered somewhere, and I don't think we would be, because it's actually two very good organisations.
Sorry, Councillor Dewhurst.
Yep.
I appreciate you're attempting to do here, but I will ask you to read out your amendment, and then you'll get the opportunity to speak to each one of these after your amendment's got a seconder. So if you could continue reading without doing your...
So read the whole thing?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, righty then.
Thank you.
Security and safety. The permit holder shall provide a detailed security plan for the city for approval prior to the event. The plan must address the crowd management of 1,000 people, emergency management response, coordination, local law enforcement and emergency services. Adequate measures must be in place to ensure the safety of all participants and the general public, including the provision of first aid services. Noise control. The permit holder must adhere to the local noise regulations and ensure that sound amplification equipment is used responsibly to minimise disruption to the surrounding areas. A designated contact person must be available throughout the event to address any noise complaints from the community. Liability insurance. In addition to public liability insurance of at least $10 million, the permit holder may be required to indemnify the city against all claims, lawsuits, damages and losses arising from the conduct of the event. Permit compliance and monitoring. The city may appoint officials to monitor the compliance with permit conditions during the event. The permit holder must cooperate fully with city officials and provide access as needed. Communication with local authorities. The permit holder must maintain open lines of communication with the city, local law enforcement, emergency services, but during and after the event to address any concerns or raised promptly. And that staff recommendation 4 or 4 be deleted. For the following reasons, by imposing these conditions, the city aims to ensure that the event is conducted in a manner that is safe, respectful and compliant with local laws and regulations, while also safeguarding public property and the interest of the broader community.
Thank you. Councillor Dewhurst seeks a seconder for his amendment. Can I get a seconder for that amendment? Councillor Good's happy to second that. Councillor Dewhurst, if you'd now like to speak to it.
Yes, thanks, Madam Mayor. Look, I know there's going to be some questions here. In regards to environmental responsibility and clean-up, I believe that to be a no-brainer. If you're going to hold any event, you should be able to clean up after yourselves. The content and conduct, I know there's federal laws in regards to this kind of behaviour, but it doesn't hurt us and it won't do any damage to us if we just remind them that this sort of stuff will not be tolerated within the local community. Not that I expect that this will happen. And the safety and security, I mean, any any organisation holding an event, large event like this, will do a security risk management, and which is also emergency management plan for the movement of crowds and stuff. The city does it all the time, and I can't expect why an organisation such as big as this, with the expected amount of people here, to have the same thing. I mean, I would hate to see us to say, yeah, guys, just walk in, walk out, no worries at all. And there's been no management considered of that at all. Noise control. Also, we've got houses that are around that proximity. I don't expect there to be. I don't expect there to be a lot of noise from there, because the amphitheatre is built in such a way where the noise bounces out across the river. But we also just want to remind them that there are noise regulations in regards to this. You do have retirement villages across the road there and up the road there a little bit. So compliance monitoring. I know that the city's not that keen on having any representation of city people down there. I reckon we should have representation down there, not to do any compliance whatsoever, not to get involved in ever. But if there's a communication that needs to be said across to the police, or the police ask something, and even to monitor the situation, because in a couple of weeks I'll be bringing a motion up to whether we're going to allow protests of certain natures to come into the city, a non-localised protest that is, and it would be good to have feedback from our rangers or from our representative to say, hey, this went really, really well, and we think absolutely wonderful, or no, it didn't go very well. But it'd be nice to have that feedback and not just relying on hearsay from members of the public who, believe me, will be calling us. Liability insurance, I just think I've added that in there, and I'd ask that to keep that in there, because you normally would ask people to identify of yourself. It's basic practice of law. If you're going to hold something on my property, I want you to identify yourself in regards to any claims, lawsuits or damages arising from the event, and that's not specifically targeted at anybody at all. It's just a common thing that goes in. Permit compliance monitoring. I mean, if we're going to provide a permit, I mean, it makes sense for us to actually monitor the permit to see what's happening. We do monitor stuff around the city now, where if we receive complaints, whatever like that. But this is a first timer for us. This is our first go of such an event in here, which may go very well, which may go very, very well. And it'd be good to have that monitoring and feedback from the staff to say, hey, that was actually excellent of what occurred. And also communication with local authorities. I mean, you'd need to have we need to identify somebody from the city with the organisers to say, because the organisers might turn around and say, hey, we've got no power. I mean, who are they going to go to? I mean, who will they ring? They'll ring the mayor or the deputy mayor and say, hey, we've got no power down here. So it's just smart to have someone from the city there to solve any problems that arise up from that. Look, I do actually support this, because I did have a discussion with the Mufti of the Perth Mosque, and a very nice guy, and the people that have actually applied for the permit on the board of WA and the Arabian Heritage Association, I knew very little of. They're actually doing a bit of history, look at them. They're very respectful organisations. I don't foresee any issues being down there at all. But I'd certainly like to have these conditions put on there, and I would think that our ratepayers would also expect us to have their back, just in case there is noise or anything like that. Not that we can do anything about it, not that we're going to get our staff involved in it, but so we can learn lessons learned. So we don't have people there, we're not going to learn our lessons. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor
Oh,
Dewhurst.
sorry, just one thing.
Sorry.
No, that's right, yeah.
You sure? Do you want a minute?
Having done the risk assessment, I see these things as being essential. I would be putting this up to any client of mine, these risk assessments, and as far as I'm concerned, non-negotiable. I'm happy to support the rally that's going to be happening on the weekend, but with these conditions. If the conditions aren't met, I can't support it. Thanks very much, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Dewhurst. Councillor Good as the seconder. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, I'm supportive of the amendments and the conditions that Councillor Dewhurst speaks about, but it's also worthwhile noting he makes a comment for the following reasons. Sentence number 2, a manner that is safe, respectful and compliant with local laws and regulations. I might just point out to everybody, it's actually federal law that under content and conduct, that free from hate speech, incitement to violence or any other content. So we can't actually go against federal law anyway. But I support the fact that Councillor Dewhurst is saying very clearly, if we put this in, it makes it very clear to the organisers, please make sure you follow these rules. So I'm supportive.
Thank you, Councillor Good. Is there anyone speaking against Councillor Dewhurst's amendment? Councillor Williamson, thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. While I appreciate Councillor Dewhurst's sentiment in trying to keep this a safe and respectful and compliant event, I am concerned that there are some conditions in here which are making it extremely onerous and stepping beyond our mark. One of the earlier items that we considered was the requirement to have a police clearance. So looking at what is actually in a police clearance covers many of these issues that are raised in here. So access, condition A on a police clearance is access and unimpeded passage to be given to all emergency vehicles. B, all danger points and intersections to be manned by responsible adult marshals. C, precautions to be taken to ensure the safety of all participants and members of the public with assistance from sufficient marshals wearing reflective vests and clothing. D, there will be no intrusion onto or into any private property without the prior permission of the owners or occupiers. E, to run, walk on footpaths, principal shared paths, and participants will travel by vehicle. F, check and rest points are to be manned by responsible adult persons and are to be established well clear of footways and carriageways. G, each pilot vehicle front and rear to have appropriate signs and warning lights, minimum of 2 escort vehicles, 1 in front and 1 behind. So the list goes on with a number of safety measures that the police put in place and that the police actually will respond to and manage under this permit. I feel that requiring them to submit to the city a plan, a safety plan, when we don't have staff qualified to assess that safety plan at a level that police would be requiring. I think when we're duplicating the permissions, they've gone to the police, they've sought a police clearance. If in this case they do get a police clearance, their responsibility to us is to come back to us under condition D, so they're not impeding on other people's private property. So they're coming to us asking our permission because this is the town centre is public property, which is them trying to meet condition D. I think requiring a lot of these extra things is just going beyond what is reasonable and beyond what is up to our staff to actually uphold, and we actually don't have grounds to monitor that and respond if they weren't meeting those things. And I have real concerns over our employees' welfare if we were to ask them to go down to a rally and start, the city may appoint officials to monitor compliance with permit conditions during the event. I would be very worried about the number of staff we're sending to a rally of an unknown quantity of people and start monitoring or issuing fines or having any interactions when it really is a police
Point of order,
Madam
Madam
Mayor.
Mayor.
Dealt with. Councillor,
I made it very,
what's your point of order?
The point of order is I made it very, very clear that the staff's not to issue fines or anything like that. So I made
Point of order, unless you're going to refer to a point of order.
I can do, but give me 5 minutes to have a look.
Okay, thank
I can
you.
do that. You want to take your 5 minute break if you want? Oh, actually, point of clarification. Do you need the number? Okay. Actually, I'll go with personal explanation, 7.16, page 14.
Which is it?
Thank you very much. I was looking for the other one, 'cause the other one's a really good one, but anyway. I made it very, very clear. The
Sorry,
staff,
could you just repeat which point of order you're talking about?
7.16.
Personal explanation, make personal... Yes, you may do that, thank you.
Yeah, I know. So I made it very, very clear that staff was not to get involved, the staff was not to hand out fines, the staff was not there for enforcement, and to say that I did or that they were going to do it is absolutely wrong. The fact is, I made it very, very clear, Madam Mayor, that the staff was there to monitor it so they could report back to us to see how it actually went and to save any problems. So I made no comment whatsoever about doing fines and enforcement. So I'm not sure what Councillor Williamson's meeting
Okay.
she's at.
Thank you, Councillor Dewhurst. Councillor Williamson may continue.
Thank you. I guess to address that, the city in the motion, maybe perhaps Councillor Dewhurst's amendment may need to be amended to remove the city reserves the right to immediately revoke the permit and discontinue the event if any activities are found to be in violation of this condition. I don't see how that could actually be upheld if you don't have rangers there identifying what the problems are and intervening.
Madam Moore.
Did you want to continue? Thank you. Do you want to continue?
Thank you. Sorry, I've lost my train of thought. So I just feel that this is going above and beyond. I think that the liability and insurance side, the public liability insurance is what any hirer has, the $10 million, and I think that these terms here, the permit holder may be required to indemnify the city against all claims, lawsuits, damages and losses arising from the conduct of the event, maybe overstepping our mark again legally, because if there's any negligence or injury that's caused due to the grounds, that I don't think we can actually ask them to indemnify that, and that won't be upheld. I think noise control as well. I think it's good to stipulate the noise control. Noise control is addressed also in the police permit, but I think it's going to be very difficult to uphold any of these conditions without rangers actually intervening on these matters. So I won't be supporting this recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Williamson. Is anybody speaking in favour of Councillor Dewhurst's amendment? All questions, thank you. And yes, Deputy Mayor, go ahead, followed by Councillor McDonald. Unless your questions as well, Councillor McDonald. Okay, questions, thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Two questions. One is, does this actually require staff to be on site at all? I don't read it as requiring staff on site.
1 second, thank you. This is a mayor point.
Read a lot of maze.
You'd need to have someone there to address the second point of content and conduct.
So if this was to go through, this is my question, and if this was to go through, we would have staff on site for this booking.
The point that the city reserves the right to immediately revoke the permit and discontinue the event if any activities are found to be in violation of this condition. I'll get some advice from the CEO.
Yeah.
Thank you. It's not quite clear, is it? Yes.
Best, and I think it puts us in an ambiguous position because, of course, if something does go wrong, then it's an impression of, well, should you have been there? I think we were being very clear that, we're either there or we're not there. It's hard to be off there.
We suggest that they should be there.
Suggest, but
Yes.
not required.
Yes.
Okay. My second question is under security and safety. The permit holder shall provide a detailed security plan. Is our city capable of assessing detailed security plans? Is that the kind of thing that we normally require? Is it onerous? I don't know what a detailed security plan is.
7.16, sorry, that's probably a typo. So when I say security plan, I mean a security emergency management people movement plan. So under the security plan is also comes under the emergency management. So the security plan might be, what they're going to provide to the police. But the security plan is about the overall plan. I'll call it a security plan, but it encompasses everything.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
Which they'll do for the police.
I guess my question is, what's the city's stance on that, Madam Mayor? It still stands.
Would you be able to respond to that, please?
Thanks for the opportunity, Madam Mayor. We do have some expertise in approving large public events, which would ordinarily include an emergency response plan, emergency evacuation plan. If it was a music concert for argument's sake, there would be ratios in terms of the number of crowd controllers to patrons attending the event that we would refer to as well. So we do have some expertise, but I wouldn't suggest that we are security experts for a detailed security plan, but that doesn't seem to be Councillor Dewhurst's intention either.
Thank you.
So I guess my question is, what would the city do if it got a detailed security plan and it was to assess it? How would it deem if it was appropriate or not?
Thank you.
Would you feel comfortable doing that?
Director Bradbrook.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. If we were to assess something like that, we would be assessing it against the requirements of the public building regulations, which specify those things, even though it's an outdoor event. That is where the requirement for an event management plan comes from. I don't know that the organisers would necessarily be able to get one of those plans together in such a short time frame, or for us to be able to comprehensively assess it. That would be a challenge.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This is not debate. I'm genuinely interested in this. So, sorry, I was trying to twist it into a. No, I'll chat later.
Thank you. To speak in support of Councillor Dewhurst's proposed amendment. Councillor Kevin McDonald had his hand up previously. You're speaking in support of the amendment. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. I would like to speak in support of Councillor Dewhurst's amendment. And firstly, I'd just like to start by concurring with Deputy Mayor Hort's comments earlier that I fully support the right for people to protest. Like Councillor Dewhurst, I'm a former long-serving police officer, and this type of event would absolutely beckon for some kind of risk assessment. I don't believe that handballing it just straight off to the police is a complete way of dealing with it. I think we do have a responsibility to our infrastructure and citizens to do our own. And I'd also too like to say I take on board the fact that there's been plenty of these protests around which have been quite peaceful and there's been no trouble. But I think this application for a permit has been thrust on us in no time at all. We've had very little time to think about anything. I've lived in this city for approximately 35 years and I've never seen a protest in this city ever. So I think we're in uncharted waters to some degree. And I would just like to congratulate Councillor Dewhurst on coming up with this amendment in such a short time. I think he's worked hard with the interests of our community in heart, and so I would just say that. And I just make the point in that part of the motion that deals with whether or not we need city officials there. The part on the back that says the city may appoint officials. It doesn't say it must appoint officials. So I think that's the prerogative of the staff executive. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor McDonald. Anybody speaking against Councillor Dewhurst's motion? Councillor Lloyd, thank you.
I think for me this is the fundamental right to protest. I feel that I have to voice something in regards to this. But the issues that I'm finding with this particular amendment is that my concern is the more we impose, the more we potentially take responsibility as well, that we need to consider the balance there. So every area of here where we are placing more and more requirements outside of what I see as the hiring out of our land and the police permit are really the only two that I think that we should be considering when it comes to protests. So yeah, my main concern is that these further imposing of rules and regulations could potentially have the opposite effect and open us to more responsibility. For instance, in the content and conduct section where you're speaking about respectful and free from hate speech or inciting of violence, Protests happen because of a difference of opinion. That's the whole point. And I feel like having lines like that in there saying what's discriminatory and offensive based on race, religion, sexual orientation, what is hate speech, just having that in there, it opens up to such a broad. For instance, this particular protest that wants to happen, one of their slogans is River to the Sea, Palestine will be free. Now, there will absolutely be people in the community that will come to us and say, that's hate speech, that's negative, and the line straight under it says that to immediately revoke and discontinue the event if any of the items are to be found in violation. Well, as soon as you put wording in here, I feel like we're just opening ourselves up to having the opposing views, very strong views, being brought to us to step in and immediately stop something. So my concern, like I said from the beginning, is that we are potentially putting in a
Point of order,
position.
Madam Mayor.
You're required to sit down. You will talk about...
7.16, I think it's Councillor
Sorry, hang on a sec. Which one are you quoting?
7.16.
Yes, and I have the right to determine that whether the personal explanation be heard immediately or at the conclusion of the speech. So I'll allow you to talk at the conclusion of her speech. Thank
Okay,
you.
so-
Carry on with your speech.
What was I up to? I think I was just reiterating at this point that I feel like other than whether or not we're going to hire our land out, which I know that Councillor Dewhurst in the future has said that he'd like to bring that discussion to the table, that discussion isn't here tonight. So it's the hiring of the land and whether they have a permit, which Deputy Mayor Hort has put up. I think that they are the things that we should be considering, and that this could potentially open us up to more responsibility.
Thank you. And your point of order, Councillor Dewhurst. Thank you.
Councillor Lloyd made a comment there that in regards to content and conduct about the hate speech, if there's any there, I don't doubt there probably won't be. She said the city will immediately revoke the permit. That's not what it says. It actually says the city reserves the right to revoke the permit. So we're not telling the people to do it. So, councillors, can I ask you to read the motion and listen to the motion, what it actually says? Thank you very much, Councillor.
Thank you. Okay, where are we at? Anybody that would speak in favour of Councillor Dewhurst's amendment? Councillor Abetz, thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. In principle, I just want to say I fully support the right of people to protest, and I certainly would want to echo some of what Councillor Lloyd said in terms of keep it simple, if at all possible. I like the sentiment of what's in this, and I think that could form part of a policy, if you like, that we have about having protests in the city. But I see a few problems with under some of those different headings. Under environmental responsibility and clean-up, I fully agree with the sentiment, but one of the big problems you have when you run a protest, that sometimes you get an aggressive counter-protest coming along, and they mess things up, they yell and scream, they make a big mess, and yet we are holding the permit holder responsible for cleaning somebody else's mess up.
Sorry, Councillor, are you speaking in favour of this amendment or against it?
I'm speaking broadly in favour, but I'm saying there's some issues with this that also need to be addressed. So
okay, thank you, Councillor Betts.
I'm hedging my bets, if you like.
Thank you.
Just want to point that out. Under content and conduct, the permit holder must ensure that all speeches, banner signs, etc., displayed during the event are respectful, etc. Again, a counter-protest can come in with very disrespectful stuff. How do we handle that? And the other is free from hate speech. My understanding is that hate speech is actually not defined in law at this point in time. I will remember that when the same-sex marriage plebiscite was on, I was accused of engaging in hate speech because I said it's okay to vote no. Simply saying I like the law the way it is. I was accused by an academic from Murdoch that I was engaging in hate speech. Who defines what hate speech is? So I think that's a little problem. Certainly incitement to violence, that's a criminal offence, etc. So that's fine, but that's that one. Permit compliance monitoring. I think it's important to note, and I think it's a positive thing, in the city may appoint officials to monitor compliance. So may, it's not necessary, but it just provides that option. And the other question, a question I have is the town square, I would have thought that would be monitored by CCTV, I would have assumed, but am I able to have an answer to that before I continue? There is CCTV, so that would be, so the whole event would be monitored, and I did miss the beginning of the workshop, so I'm not quite sure, but the fact that this is a request for permit to use the Gosnells Town Square and Pioneer Park and Amphitheatre, am I right in assuming that they want to gather at the town square and then march to the amphitheatre? Is that the intent?
We're not sure.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
sorry,
Just
thank you. It seems logical that that's what would happen, that they'd migrate across the road down the hill, but I'm not sure, sorry.
For that, they would probably need that would need to be spelled out in the police permit for that. One of the other interesting things that some of you may not be aware of is that even if you don't have a police permit, if people simply gather and start marching, there is very little that actually can happen. Even at Parliament House, you can book to have a rally outside Parliament House. If another group rocks up half an hour before you have it booked and they don't move, there's nothing we can actually do about it. Even though they don't have a permit, we've got the police permit, we've got the Parliament House permit, there's nothing you can do. So there's real limits around what you can actually prevent and do. But broadly, I'm in support of the intent of Councillor Dewhurst's amendment. I just wonder whether it wouldn't be better to refine this and build this into a future policy around what would go with people applying for a permit, and we say this is what's expected of you. Read this. If you're happy to go along with that, then you can apply for a permit. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Betts. Speaking in favour of the amendment?
Madam Mayor, sorry, can I do a point of order, 7.16 again? Hate speech is defined in law. It's actually in the Racial Discrimination Act of 1975. And it's the Racial Discrimination Act, 1975. Hate speech is defined in there.
Thank you, Councillor Dewhurst.
Thank you.
Councillor Deputy Mayor Hort, are you speaking in for or against?
I'm against, Madam Mayor, because that was technically for, if that's okay.
Yes, that was technically
Been
for.
waiting patiently. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you.
Look, I'll be really quick. Appreciate the questions and the answers that I received before, because I certainly was sitting on the fence on this one. It's very difficult. I think the detailed security plan, it sounds like we would only assess the stuff that's really in our wheelhouse, so I feel comfortable with that. Sounds like there's discretion around the staff being on site. I want to applaud Councillor Dewhurst for bringing this together in such short notice. I think we have the beginnings of a policy here, but I think there's some real serious issues in this, and that's why I can't support it here tonight. The main reason I can't support it here tonight is because the gathering is on Saturday, and a lot of this stuff is going to take them a long time to get together. So I think the police permit and I think the other conditions put in place are enough in the meantime, and I think we can have the debate in these chambers in the public to make sure that the policy captures all of those concerns and make sure that everything's set straight for future protests should people want to have them. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Council, is there any further for the amendment? You have a question? Sorry. Thank you. Do you have a question or you want to speak against? Against? I'll just ask the question first then, thanks.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just have a question in regards to having city staff on site under environmental responsibility. At what point in time would a post-event inspection occur by city staff? 5:35 or the next day?
Generally, it would occur on a Monday morning when we've got staff, unless we're advised that there are some real problems and we need to get special teams out to do something.
Councillor Islam, thank you. If there was no one else to speak for the amendment, Councillor Islam, thank you.
Thanks, Madam Mayor, for your time. I guess a couple of things I want to raise. Since the workshop, we have come all the way forward. We had a long argument with this, whether we should allow someone to protest in our councils. Now, I mean, most of our councillors now in a view that we should allow councillors to protest, the people to protest in our council, which is a very good point because we live in a democratic country, so we believe everyone should have a right to protest. The reason I want to actually speak against this is because most of these, as Councillor Williamson said, most of these are actually spelled out in W Police Permit. There are 19 conditions attached to this. So I don't think we should, as a government authority, we should duplicate our work where W Police is taking this seriously. They will be doing their job and we should rely on the job that they're doing. They're doing a wonderful job. So I don't want to create extra work for our people in the council and also put themselves in a situation where they will need to conflict or protest against, face against angry people as well. So that's my point. Thank you.
Councillor Islam, and I will be entering in to speak against this amendment as well for several reasons. The majority of it is I don't think that we could legally enforce some of these things, and can I just clarify that with the director, that the bond which is set in our fees and charges, are we able to legally enforce that they be responsible, includes not limited, can we enforce them to do the clean-up afterwards under our normal things, or can that be made on the fly like this?
Madam Mayor, Council can impose any conditions it likes on a permit within, I guess, within reason. So you could impose that condition. I guess if they don't comply, what's the consequence? The consequence would be the organisers probably get an infringement notice for $150 for failing to comply with the condition of permit. Probably going to cost us a lot more than that, I imagine, to do a clean-up if there is a substantial mess. So that's really our only option.
Okay, thank you. I guess my other concern is that when you put an amendment up, it's to give the applicants an idea of what they are and are not responsible for, as well as the staff of what they are and are not meant to monitor. And this amendment is quite vague and may do and can do and should do and maybe do. I just feel like that doesn't give any clarity to the staff on what they should do with this amendment, and it certainly doesn't give the organisers of the event any real of what they should be doing as well. It's, required to indemnify, they may be required to indemnify. Well, are they or aren't they required to indemnify against all claims? It's just very vague, and in its current form, I can't support it, but I do see that it is the start of what could be, some of those points could be covered in a very good policy going forward. But as it stands now, I can't support this amendment for those reasons. Councillor Dewhurst, just see if there's anybody else that would like to speak to the item. No, Councillor Dewhurst can close the debate on this amendment. Thank you.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. Look, I'd love to live in the utopia world that the councillors who are not supporting the amendment in there, because to tell you the truth, I find it extremely frightening that you got two.
Point of order, Madam Mayor.
About to call that point of order myself.
I'll
Thank
let you
you, Councillor Deputy Mayor
Don't live
Hort.
in utopia?
7.18, a member is not to reflect adversely on the council. Thank you. Character.
Thanks,
actions.
Madam Mayor. I didn't
Thank
find
you.
that adverse at all. It just appears that we're living in a utopian society, but we don't. So, you've got two seasoned police officers standing here saying, guys, this is what we need to do. This is what we need to do because this has been our bread and butter and this is how you protect your community. Yet we've got people sitting around here who haven't really the experience of to do that and saying, oh, look, we don't need it. We'll be all right. Let's do it next time. But you know what? This has happened. This come out today. This come out today, this did. So it took a fair while to actually sit down and write this because I believe that we need to do this. And anyone who has any form of experience in gatherings of people, doesn't matter who they are, right? Make this very clear. They would do the same thing. And I know you're talking about what's may and it's got in there may and it sounds wishy-washy. That's not wishy-washy at all. Because what you do is you say, you may take out liability insurance on this, and then we say this is what one of the conditions are. They say, well, we don't have to because we've got this. Okay, no worries, done. Doesn't got to come back to council. The staff can make their own determination from that there. Councillors, I'm not asking for people to be down there, but I'm asking us to be informed. Because I'm telling you, I don't expect this to be an issue at all. We're going to get some noise complaints. I can understand that. But if something does happen, and we haven't fully considered this on the permit side of it, we're going to get absolutely shot because we haven't taken into consideration of our community. I mean, we're saying we can't have staff down there, but we can have community people living up the road, walking past, probably trying to use the park. You know, what happens if there's a bushfire that happens down there? Say someone accidentally sets off, some drops of smoke, and a bushfire happens. They need a plan to get out there. And say, imagine if some people died. Hey, Councillor Dewhurst put it up that they should have a plan, but those councillors didn't have to. You got liability sitting here. This is to cover the councils and councillors. What's the word I can use? This is to cover our backs. These here are to cover our backs. I mean, we're talking about. Sorry, hang on. We're talking about. Councillor Williamson brought up the fact about there's all these conditions from the police, but you know the biggest failure in emergencies is communication, effective communication. So we've got these guys talking to each other, but something happens that we're responsible for, and we've got no communications with them. Who the hell do they call? I mean, who do they speak to? Councillors, this is our bread and butter. You guys are hanging yourselves out to dry. This is not these aren't racist comments.
Point of order, Madam Mayor. There's something in here about raising new information at the end. We haven't had the chance to consider half this information about being hung out to dry and living in utopias and things like that. So give me some time, I'll find out where it is.
Thank you, find that.
Any assistance would be greatly appreciated.
I'd like to know what information's been brought up, because I've got my notes down here, what people have said. So,
Talking about bushfires.
we're talking about emergencies.
I think there is that. We can't tell him anyway. He'll have to find it himself. It won't take a minute.
Thanks. I can't find it. I just saw it.
It'll be under closing of debate.
It's not wrapping. It's
Just to save time, can we just agree that it's in there somewhere?
No, thank you. I'll make this decision. Thank you, Councillor Dewhurst.
Be confined to rebutting arguments raised. 916.5.
Try 916.
916.
916.5.
915.
916.5.
9165. The right of the reply is to be confirmed to be rebutting. Yeah, Thanks, Madam Mayor. Look, I think we've just had...
You need to speak to it. You just need to raise that that's what it is, and then I make a ruling on it.
Oh, okay. I thought I had to provide an explanation.
No, because you're saying what it is.
Okay, done.
Yeah.
I need to know what he's talking about. Where is it?
9.165. Confined to rebutting arguments raised by previous speakers and no new matter is to be introduced. Thank you, Councillor Dewhurst. If you could avoid bringing new matter into your closing debate.
Can you please articulate to me what new matter has been brought up? Because I have been writing down what people have said, and I'm going exactly straight through what people have said. So can you please articulate to me the new information that I've brought up?
Thank you, Councillor Dewhurst. If you'd like to sit while I articulate that. I imagine that it is about the bushfire, that we didn't talk about that. Would you like to elaborate on what you were referring to?
Look, Madam Mayor, Councillor Dewhurst, I respect his opinion on these things. He's shared with us that he does risk assessments, he does this kind of thing as part of his line of work. And now we've got introduction of what I thought I heard was death and bushfire, which is very new information and something that I think is new and something that the council would need to consider if it's...
Thank you. Councillor Dewhurst, if you could continue with your debate without bringing new information in. Thank you.
I need to clarify something though. Isn't a bushfire or death a part of an emergency situation? Yes or no? I'm sorry, I need to answer that, get that answered. Because in my last terminology is death and bushfires. If something happens that's emergency, that's an emergency. I'm sure it is. And that's
So
what I'm talking
point
about.
of clarification, personal
Goodness
1.16, Madam Mayor. I guess we're talking about something that's happening on Saturday. We've all got the same information about what's happening on Saturday. I don't see a risk of death and bushfire from what has been proposed. But if there's extra information, because I know Councillor Dewhurst has had meetings outside of this that we need to know about.
If there was
really
extra
important.
information, he couldn't bring it in now. So can you just continue with your debate, Councillor Dewhurst? And there's no need to mention death because that hasn't been set in any of the 20 rallies that have been held by this group so far.
So let me re-clarify it. So it's a 35-degree day. It's going to be extremely windy. It's easterly winds blowing. Have a look at the weather map. Okay, I'm sure out of those 1,000 people, someone may be smoking, and we just may have a match that goes onto the a smoke that goes onto the ground, which creates an emergency. And where I was going with that is, if an emergency occurs that requires the city response, don't we need to have that contact with the police and also the organisers? I have not seen anywhere in this whatsoever where we have got the organisers talking to us. I mean, Councillor Williamson brought up, the police asked for emergency management plans, the police asked for this. There's no comment in the whole thing is that share it with the council. That's all they need to do. So please don't get stuck on the fact that they've got to do these comprehensive security plans, emergency management plans. They're doing them anyway. And if they're going to hand them to the police, they can hand them to us.
Councillor Williamson, thank you. What Councillor Williamson?
Point of clarification on the if there was a fire, what the city's involvement would be, or would that be the fire brigade that comes out?
Councillor Director Bradbrook, what would happen should there fire happen there?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Well, it's in a gazetted fire zone, so the responsibility for the fire would rest with Defes. The city may be called on to assist if it had to open an evacuation centre or anything like that to accommodate people.
Thank you, Councillor Dewhurst. If you could move on with your closing of debate. Thank you.
I'd just like to do either a clarification on that as well. If DFS are coming out to our place here, our Gosnells Bushfire Brigade people will be coming out and Rod Longton will be coming out as well. So yes, and it will be very hard for them to actually go to an incident. I'm not saying these things are going to happen, but you've got to think about it. This is what risk assessments are called. This is what risk assessments are for. Actually to say, we've actually thought about this and we've mitigated it. Security Emergency Management Plan, they've submitted it to the police. Bang, great, give it to us. You know, we have people who's not even associated with the rally, breaking into somebody's house. You know what I mean? And you know, let's talk to the police about that. Because last thing you want to do is people throwing rotten eggs at the rally. I'm just saying, let's be prepared. Risk assessments are about to be prepared. Councillors, I don't expect to be any trouble at all on the weekend. The two organisations, absolutely great. I've spoken to the Mufti, Mohammed, absolutely fabulous guy. Okay, I'm just asking us to be responsible to the ratepayers, to be responsible to the people that are going there, and responsible to our staff who may have to go there on the cold because I don't know who to talk to, because they say the power's gone out. Councillors, don't look too far into these conditions. Our city staff get paid a lot of money, particularly the CEO and our directors get paid a lot of money and say, this won't work, that won't work. That's why there's mays and ifs and that are in there, so they can actually adapt it to what something is going to work. You know, and if they turn around and we put these conditions on there, yeah, I mean, if they don't tidy it up, we can ask them. But the thing is, when you sign a permit, you're actually agreeing as an organisation, you're taking responsibility for this. And I see nothing in these conditions that why we wouldn't hold people responsible for. I mean, would we take them to court? I don't know. That's for another day. Are we going to go to court? No, we're not, because nothing's going to happen. But I'm just saying, councillors, let's cover our backs. Let's make sure we actually can demonstrate we've actually thought about this, particularly tonight, because if something does happen and if these amendments don't go through, well, councillors, I'm sorry, but I can see you're absolutely going to get slammed here, particularly if nothing happens there, but our community goes up in uproar because they've been interfered with, because people are parking in there. There's 1,000 people going there, so I'm expecting about 400 cars. Wow, where are they going to park? You know what I mean? But who cares, councillors? Who cares? But what I'm saying, Madam Mayor, is let's cover our backs. I've done a risk assessment on the very limited time that we've had. Yes, probably some more time could be on there. I could have got a few more in there. I could have massaged it. I could have worked with the staff. But the fact is, what we are providing, what we're providing for 1,000 people is no different. What these amendments are is no different for when we actually run our Illuminator or any other organisation, of our own stuff. So, councillors, I know you're not going to support it, but have a think about the ramifications if something does go wrong. And you know what? I'd love for you to stand at me next Tuesday night and say, "Ha, we told you nothing's going to happen," and I'll say, "Yes, I told you nothing's going to happen as well." You know, but you didn't need these. And I'm sorry, Madam Mayor, but I don't buy the fact is, oh, this is a really good formation of a policy, and, you know, when we talk about this, the fact is, we've got no policy at the moment. We've got something happening on Saturday. Let's protect ourselves. Let's protect the community. Let's protect the organisers. Let's protect our staff. Get everyone talking, good communications. They have a great event, and you know what? We can probably have a lot more. That's all I'm asking for. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Dewhurst. Could those in support of Councillor Dewhurst's amendment please raise your hand? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That has been lost, your amendment. We will now move back to the original item.
So it's 2, which has been amended with 3.
Which is the staff recommendation 2, which has been amended with 3. Councillors, I have an amendment to this item. I would like to add that the permit holder must maintain open lines of communication with the city, law enforcement, emergency services before, during and after the event to address any concerns or incidences promptly. And for the reason as has been discussed here, I think that that is fair and reasonable for us to have context for who's in this. And I request a seconder for that amendment. Thank you, Councillor Lloyd. So basically I'm quoting Councillor Dewhurst's last, it's on the pink one, and I'm referring to Councillor Dewhurst's communication with local authorities so that at all times the city staff, I'm sure we have an after-hours city staff number that we can give out. I'm happy to, probably not, I won't be in Perth, but anyway, someone will be able to have that open form of communication as well as the law enforcement so that everyone has got a contact number should any issues occur there at that time. Councillor Lloyd, would you like to speak to the amendment?
I think that it's as a last minute amendment, it is probably one of the best that we could have at the moment. I think that it brings a bit of clarity around one of Councillor Dewhurst's main concern is those lines of communication. So yes, I fully support it, and considering the time constraints that we have, I think that we should move ahead with that.
Anyone else wanting to speak for or against the amendment? Councillors, would you please cast your vote? Thank you. That has been carried. Going back to the original item, that will be inserted as item 4 of staff recommendation 2 of 4. Is there any further debate on recommendation 2 of 4? Councillor Dewhurst.
Clarification, just quickly. You know when we put our hands up for yay and against, are the staff actually writing down who voted yes and no for it?
Yes.
Can I please have a readout of who voted for and against for the amendment, please, or for? Or I can work out who against or against whatever.
Well, Councillor Dewhurst, if you hadn't been on your phone at the time, you would have seen. Yes, I'm happy with that. Could you read out who voted against? You voted against, Councillor Dewhurst, or you didn't vote because your head was in the phone?
No, I'm talking about the amendments that I put up.
Oh, you're going back to that?
Yeah.
You can read it out.
Madam Mayor, we had for the amendment, Councillor Betts, Councillor Adams, Councillor Baynes, Councillor Dewhurst, Councillor Good and Councillor McDonald. So against the Mayor, yeah, Councillor Dalton, Councillor Hort, Councillor Islam, Councillor Lloyd, Councillor Zhang and Councillor Williamson.
Any further debate
you very
on
much.
staff recommendation 2 of 4? Who moved that one?
It was generally moved as part of the original, which was moved by...
Councillor Deputy Mayor Hort, you may have moved this originally. No, you didn't.
I think let's do it as a new one. Why don't we just get somebody to move it with, because we're going...
So what we're going to do on CEO's recommendation, Councillor, do you believe you moved it? Yes. Yes, they're coming still. They're coming after this.
Yeah. So David Good and Karen Bands moved the overall thing, which probably captures them.
Okay, so Councillor Good, would you like to close the debate on recommendation 2 and 4, which now includes points 3 and 4?
Certainly, Madam Mayor. Did you want me to come to any more of these? No, they're not the...
No, you're just closing the debate on 2 and on staff
Beg your pardon?
recommendation. You're just closing the staff recommendation 2 of 4.
2 or 4. In that case, I'm supportive of that amendment, 2 or 4.
Okay. We need to vote on that now?
Well, yes, because
Yeah.
you voted on 2.
So we're going to vote on staff recommendation 2 of 4 with the points 3 and 4 that have been added. So councillors that are in support of recommendation 2 of 4 as it is. Thank you. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 councillors. That has been carried. Staff. Okay. So we will now go on to recommendation 1 of 4. Sorry, 1 second.
You could go about the charging if you wanted to first. But
You would need to grant it before we worked out if we're going to charge it, wouldn't you? And what about this one? Council notes it should permit be
I think
granted
on
to.
the basis that Glenn's version of that was defeated, you'd be putting that, because it was still a motion.
So we're going to go with 4 of 4.
Well, yes, on the basis Glenn...
I think we'll move on to staff recommendation 4 of 4. Can I get a mover for that, please?
So have we done 3 or 4 already?
No, we haven't. It's the order. So ask, because it'd be hard to do the others without this one being done first. So staff recommendation 4 of 4. Councillor Williamson, you're happy to move that? Can I get a seconder for that, please? Councillor Lloyd to second that. Councillor Williamson, would you like to speak to that? No. Councillor Lloyd. Anybody else? Councillor Dewhurst.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. Look, I can see the intent of this, but I can't support that, this recommendation. The reason being is the city must be in contact with the people. And I mean, if you can't see that, there's something fundamentally wrong with this council, Madam Mayor. The city must be in contact with these people. I mean, so how could you not? So it's, I strongly suggest councillors to start thinking about, again, the risks involved here, not because of a particular event, but in any event with 1,000 people. But the city staff must be in contact with these people. They must be able to have contact too, and also the people need to be able to speak to the city staff.
Councillor Dewhurst, this recommendation talks about whether the staff should attend the event. So this is saying that should not attend the event?
Says staff would not attend the event to monitor compliance with legislation.
Do you want them in contact or you want them to attend the event? So you're talking about them having contact, but this is talking about them attending the event.
Yeah, but there's nothing in here to say for us people, for the council to be in contact, because you voted that down in the last motion. And in my amendments, you actually voted that down.
No, it didn't. It got up.
You did. You said that. I like to read.
Sorry. Dewhurst, the amendment that I put up says, it's part of your amendment, which is your communications and with local authorities. The permit holder must maintain lines of communication with the city, local law enforcement and emergency services before, during and after the event to address any concerns. That was passed as point number 4 of recommendation 2 of
Well
4.
done, Madam Mayor. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Dewhurst. Any more debate on recommendation 4 of 4? Councillor Betts had his hand up earlier. Councillor Deputy Mayor Hort, thank you.
I'm just concerned that, I think I'm speaking against this because I believe that the staff should have the CEO should have the option of, if there's anything that develops, should have the option of sending a staff member there, whereas we're saying they would not, and I just don't think that's appropriate. I think we just need if we vote 4 down, it simply leaves it up to the CEO or the person in charge of ranges, whatever, to make the decision whether it's appropriate or not to have someone there. And I think that would be a better state of affairs.
To this recommendation?
No, I'm saying vote it down.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm voting against it.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Deputy Mayor Hort, thank you.
Completely agree with Councillor Abetz. I think this removes the option entirely for staff to attend if required, which I don't think is the intent of this number 4. So I won't be voting for it.
Thank you. Any further debate on this item? Councillors, if you'd like to cast your vote if you're for staff recommendation 4. 1, 2, 3, that has been lost, so that is gone, correct? That's removed. Now we'll go back to number 3. Yes, now we'll go back to number 3. Can I get a mover for someone to move either they be charged or not be charged as the staff recommendation 3 of 4? Councillor Williamson, followed by, Councillor Williamson, you're moving that they
Not be charged.
not be charged. Councillor Good, you're happy to, can I get a seconder for that? Councillor Islam's happy to second that. Would you like to speak to that, Councillor Williamson?
Yes, thank you. I think a right to protest is a given in Australia, and I don't think we should be imposing a charge for people to actually be able to protest. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Islam, would you like to speak to that? Whoops.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. I just want to say what Councillor Williamson said is when you are exercising your right in a democratic country, we shouldn't charge anyone. So I think, we shouldn't charge any any amount for an event like this. Thank you.
Anybody speaking against? Thank you, Councillor Betts. Then Councillor Dewhurst.
I have 2 questions. One, what is actually the amount of money we're waiving here? And the other is there a charge for a police permit for a for a rally? I don't know whether there is or not. I can't remember either. I've organised, but I can't remember whether. Yeah, that's what I thought too.
So it is in the report, which I didn't see either. So $318 is how much we'd be waiving. Thank you. I just have a quick question as well. Sorry, I know you're wanting to speak, Councillor Deputy Mayor Hort. When we issue a permit, does that have guidelines with the permit? And if so, I imagine there's plenty.
Madam Mayor, there are standard conditions that go along with a permit. Those are really reflected in the recommendation around paying a bond, the public liability insurance, and the requirement to remove rubbish after the event.
So within that permit, there's no requirement to have traffic management or any of that sort of thing within the permit?
Madam Mayor, that requirement would normally come in under the public building regulations where a person needed an event approval under those regulations. This event doesn't require an approval under those regulations, so that is not required for this particular event.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Hort, thank you. Oh,
Thank you,
sorry, hang on one sec. Councillor, no, you were next, Councillor Dewhurst, sorry. Sorry, it's a little bit hard to keep track of there's that much Jackie Bobbin.
I'm sorry as well. It doesn't really matter who goes first.
Thank you,
he's prettier than me, so. Look, I firmly believe that anyone hiring our places should be charged. Otherwise, if not, if I had my daughter's birthday party in the local park next time, I'll call it a rally or a protest, and I'll expect a waiver. I mean, we charge the Arab Association. We have the events in the park. We charge the oh my God, I've forgotten his name. Anyway, 3 other people in the city that use these places, and I can't see any exceptional circumstances whatsoever why you wouldn't. If you're going to afford that to the to a group, well then maybe we should look at our charges and get rid of it altogether. I mean, fair's fair, you know. Would it pass a pub test? No, it wouldn't. Thanks, Madam Mayor.
Yeah, I just want to agree with Councillor Dewhurst on this. I think if it's a rentable space, if it's a hireable space, which I've been informed it is, and we would normally charge this to anybody else, then we should charge it for a rally or a demonstration or a vigil or whatever the name is for this. I think it should be the same for everyone. There are places in the city that don't cost money. I certainly have used my local park a number of times not for rallies or vigils, but certainly for birthday parties and not being charged a dime because they're not hireable, leasable, bookable spaces. So I think that's the difference here. The one thing that sits uncomfortably with me is I think that this site was recommended by the city, and I hope in those conversations it was included that there would be a higher charge. But be all and end all, at the end of the day, this is a precedent, so we want to be careful with this, and I think we need to charge for any bookable place regardless of what's occurring.
Councillor Good, thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, totally in support of Councillor Dewhurst's view and particularly Deputy Mayor Hort's view. Absolutely, if it's public space, fine, local park, etc. But this is our council property. You should pay. Simple as that.
Thank you. Interesting that you should mention whether that came up in conversation, and it didn't come up in conversation that we would be charging them, because at the time the Gosnells Town Square, my understanding, was not a bookable space, and now tonight I've found out that it is a bookable space. So I think that I think going forward I would be in favour of charging, but on this particular instance, considering all of this has come to us late, as well as everything that we've had to deal with tonight and all of the other things that are going to come on board with this, I am not in support of charging this particular group, but doesn't mean I wouldn't be in support of charging future groups going forward. Councillor Deputy Mayor Hort, thank you.
Point of clarification. Madam Mayor, in the interest of the reputation of the city and the good nature of the conversations that happen between the group and yourself and Mr CEO, I too am happy with the waiver of the thing. But I want it to be really clear that I don't think that this should be a precedence at all. I know it's been a really testing time getting this formula right so that we can allow something like this to occur in our city, and I don't want there to be any ill will that comes out of this by all of a sudden us charging. So I'm in support of waiving.
Councillor Dewhurst, you have a question, I think?
Yeah, I've got a question. Just for my own interest. So when we charge groups to go into our buildings, we give them a peppercorn lease, which is $1 a year. And I think and please correct me, that dollar actually symbolises an agreement that you're actually paying for something and you're doing that. Now, if we allow any group to have this this payable area as a non-payment, even if it's not $1, could that leave us open legally? Because I seem to think it probably would, because the reason we charge that is to cover our costs, but also it sets them to an obligation, like you do your peppercorn lease as well. So again, councillors, I think this is fraught with danger. We need to stop flying off making willy-nilly decisions and actually have a look at what the things we're actually doing tonight. Thank you.
Councillor Dewhurst, I know there's a question there, so I'll get Director Bradbrook to respond to that question. While you're responding to that question, may I add another question to it? In that, is it correct that the city waived the higher fee for the Thornley Community Centre for a service for the late president of the Arab Association, which would result in the same outcome in that we wouldn't have a legal contract if that's the case? Thank you.
Madam Mayor, the payment of a fee doesn't create a legal contract between the city and the hirers. The application is for a permit. It's not a contractual relationship. So the hire fee is set by council with some regard to the cost of maintaining those types of spaces. I believe, in relation to your question, we did waive the fee, I believe, for the hire of the Thornley Community Centre for that service, as I recall.
Councillor Islam, thank you.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. Through you, just want to ask a question. Until last week, we were aware that place was not bookable, and within a week, how it has become a bookable place, and certainly it's not showing in our bookable system as a bookable place to book. Can I just ask this clarity or question answered, please?
will respond to that and, yes, thank you, Director Glover.
Through you, Madam Mayor, both of those are bookable. That information wasn't made available to you at the time, which I apologise for. In terms of public knowledge of that, currently Pioneer Park is listed on the website, which is one of the two sites that's been sought, but Town Square was missing and we're going to address that this week.
Thank you. Any further? Councillor Lloyd, thank you.
I just have a question. If they don't pay a fee and we're not booking it to them, can anybody else use that space in that time, or will it be set aside for them? So we're talking about a booking fee. So it will be a booking but with no fee. So nobody else can come in and use that space.
That's correct.
Okay. Oh, hang on. Martin's doing it.
If someone books it, then they book it. If we waive the fee, they've still got it booked, so no one else can use the space, correct?
Through you, Madam Mayor, I think it was raised earlier on, in terms of open space, so parks, if somebody turns up on that site, then they're there as in a public domain. We have no facility to remove them. It's actually in the notes that are provided to the person who's booking it. There's advice in there to that effect. If it's a building, it's a different story.
Okay. You were referring to Town Square and the amphitheatre?
Yes.
Yes, thank you. Any further questions on the payment item? Councillor Williamson, would you like to close debate or ask questions?
I just have a question. Is the CEO aware that the City of Perth doesn't issue permits for public rallies and that they only request notification be sent?
Thank you, Mr CEO. Sorry.
That's my understanding.
So in that case, would it be reasonable to assume that they don't expect people to pay a higher fees to have a protest in the city?
CEO.
Look, it's difficult to talk about another local government because I understand their local law is almost exactly the same as ours, so I don't know how they operate with their local law and the way they operate. That we'd need to specifically ask them around that. But I think we need to determine what's appropriate for us here rather than try and mirror the City of Perth, would be my view.
Councillor Williamson, you're closing the debate?
Can I just ask another question? Can I understand the reasoning why we're going down a permit line rather than going down just a notification line and assuming that the police issue permits? Like, is there any additional legal responsibility on us if we've actually permitted this?
Thank you, Mr.
Well, our local law says that our local law defines an event as something which includes what is proposed, and that requires a permit. So that's what's in the local law that this council's adopted, and that's what we're working with, and it's the first time we've been in this position, so that's our situation.
Councillor Islam has a question.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. Just a question on the to the CEO is, are you aware of any of the city council here in WA or across the country does allow the permit for the protest and also charge fees as well? Thank you.
Thank
I wouldn't know, Madam Mayor.
There's no further questions or debate on this, on staff recommendation 3 of 4. I'll ask Councillor Williamson to close the debate on that one. Thank you.
Thank you. Look, I am still not going to support having a fee put on this because I'm very worried that putting a fee on this then solidifies that we've actually given permission for this event to occur and that we're getting monetary value from it, and I'm concerned what our liabilities are if things do go wrong. So I will not be supporting this. Thank you.
Thank you, councillors. If you'd like to vote for the not to be charged, then please raise your hand. Thank you. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That's carried. Thank you. Did you put your hand up as well, Councillor Adams? 8. That's carried. Moving on, we will go back now to number 1. That the council, we need someone to move that the council determines to grant or not grant a permit. Can I get a mover for either one of those, please? Councillor Dewhurst, which one are you moving? Not grant a permit. And you have a seconder for Councillor Dewhurst? Councillor McDonald, happy to second that. Councillor Dewhurst, if you'd like to speak to not granting a permit.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. Look, like I said earlier, Madam Mayor, is that I have full support for this rally to come on there if we did a risk assessment, risk mitigation strategy for it. We haven't done it. I urge councillors to, and I would have supported this, and I told the Mohammed that I would support it, but under certain conditions of the risk assessment. I've said what comes out of council. I didn't talk about risk assessments at that stage. But unfortunately, I'll kind of disappoint him. I can't support it, and I can't support it because it's going to put our council, our councillors at risk if something does happen down there. It's also there is expectations out there that our community want us to do our work and not just hand over property without the appropriate preparedness. We haven't done that. We're nowhere near prepared for 1,000 people to come here. There could be 2,000 people, there could be 500 people, but we're not prepared. So, councillors, it's with heavy heart. I can't support this motion because I personally don't want to take the risk, and I don't want the council to take the risk. If the councillors choose that they want to take that risk, that's fine. It's up to them. But I can see the weekend going away very beautifully. Happening very nicely, but if something happens, councillors, you've left our council, our community, yourselves open for litigation and all sorts of issues. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor McDonald, would you like to speak as a seconder?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, look, I concur with what Councillor Dewhurst has said. I fully support protests and free speech and democracy in this country, 100%, unequivocally. I don't think this debate has got anything to do with those things. I think this is a debate about what the council's responsibility are in relation to a matter that's been thrust upon it with very insufficient time to digest it and consider what the risks are. I can see that there's potential risk, and I certainly hope that it goes without any incidents whatsoever, but I can't in full conscience condone something that I'm so uninformed about. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor McDonald. Is there any further debate on not granting the permit? Councillor Good, thank you. And Councillor Adams, Councillor Good first, thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, listening to Councillor Dewhurst's comments, but which I'm very supportive, and but I also think Councillor McDonald has just made several profound statements. Both of you with your police backgrounds, I too am of a view that, I want people to freedom to protest. I don't have a problem. I wish those amendments had got up, but the fact is I've had to now say, no, I can't support it because it is the risk there. But I take your experiences on board from both former serving police officers, so I do agree with free speech.
Councillor Adams, sorry.
Just for clarity, can you repeat the other recommendations so we know?
So the recommendation that we're talking about now is recommendation 1 of 4, and what has been moved is to not grant a permit for this recommendation. So this is what we're debating at the moment.
Yes, but the recommendation 2, 3 and 4, how do they read now? What were the extra items added on, just for clarity?
So item 2 is as is, and then point 3 is added to that regarding the need to have a police permit, and point 4 is added to that regarding the need to have the permit holder must maintain open lines of communication with the city, local law enforcement, emergency services before, during and after the event to address any concerns or incidents. Item 3. Staff recommendation 3 of 4 is that they not be charged for the facility, and staff recommendation 4 of 4 did not get carried.
Thank you.
Any further? Councillor Betts, thank you.
Madam Mayor, I speak against the motion as it's been moved. I note that on the City of Perth, they say approval to hold protests and rallies is solely given by the WA Police, which would indicate, I would assume, that the City of Perth has actually done their legal homework, etc., which indicates to them that if the police approve it, then as far as they're concerned, there's no issues for the city, apart from the next bit. It says, use of the city's public space is subject to availability and venue functionality. So that's where the council comes in and say, yeah, look, that's not a suitable site, but we think that is. And I think we've covered that. So I don't believe the risk is too significant for us as a council. So I don't support the motion as it is. Thank you.
Any further debate or councillor? No, is there any further?
A point of clarification, Madam Mayor. Obviously, we've now got a motion ahead of us saying not to grant it.
Yep.
Do we then need to have an amendment if this one fails to grant it? Or is it by default us declining the not grant that we're saying we grant? I assume not.
If this motion gets up, the permit won't be granted.
Yeah, if it doesn't though,
If it
we're gonna
doesn't, then we will debate should it be granted.
so someone else will have to put up another. Yep.
Yes, correct. Yes. Councillors, if there's no, oh, you want to close the debate? Thank you, Councillor Dewhurst.
Thanks very much for that, and I appreciate Councillor Betts is saying, and we keep going to the great landlord of the City of Perth that does nothing wrong, doesn't have royal commissions put into it or anything like that, and we look at their policies and that. But the fact is, they're a capital city. Do you think they've got a choice? Are they going to have protests in there or not? They're a capital city, so they've thrown their hands up and they've gone, you know what? We're, the police grant it, go for it, guys, because we're the capital city. This is where you've got to protest. Okay? Let's look at why don't we bring up City of Fremantle?
There'll be new information.
I know, that's not new information at all. He's brought it up.
Go ahead, Councillor
We're talking about City of Fremantle, the most green lefty place you can actually get on the planet, nearly. I've got friends down there, so hopefully you're not listening. They don't allow the protests. They say, no, you can't do it. Yes, there's protests down there, but they don't give their permission. You know why? Because they don't accept the liability. City of Gosnells saying this, if I say to Adam, come on, come up to my place. Your kids can go and jump on my trampoline. I've got liability because it's my trampoline. The City of Perth has liability if something goes wrong in there. Councillors, how naive are we? So please stop going to the other cities. Let's have a look at what this is. What actually this is about. Look, I understand that we want to feel warm and fuzzy and have everybody protest, which is great. I want them to be warm and fuzzy and let these guys protest because it's a very important subject. Very important subject. Okay? But we need to protect the city and we need to protect our staff and our community by having a very basic risk assessment of which you've all denied. So, councillors, I'm sorry, but I can't support it. I can't support this. And I recommend you don't support it either because, something does go wrong, anything could happen. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Dewhurst. Councillors, could you please cast your vote if you do not want to grant the permit? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5, that has been lost. Councillors, I now need someone to move. Sorry, that was to grant the permit, wasn't it? You moved to grant? No, you moved to not grant it. Now I need someone to...
We were just checking.
Sorry, hands up, it was 5. Councillor Betts, Councillor Dalton, Councillor Griffiths,
I didn't support the motion.
Yeah, that's what I want to know. Who doesn't want to permit a grant?
You first asked who voted in favour of the motion.
No, they didn't get the count, okay? So I'll go again. For staff recommendation 1 of 4, if you do not want to grant a permit, please raise your hand now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Sorry, that's a bit. 5. You got that? Thank you. So that has been lost. Now we will have somebody to move that they do want to grant the permit. Deputy Mayor Hort will move that, and can I get a seconder? Thank you. Councillor Saiful Islam. Thank you. Deputy Mayor Hort.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The city staff are experienced. The city staff we trust with many, many decisions that we make. We know they are obliged, the CEO is obliged to make the right legal decisions for us, to advise us if we're doing anything illegal, to advise us if we're doing anything that puts the city at risk. And the advice is here that we have an option. We can either grant this or not. We've added in extra components to this to make sure that we're comfortable with the next steps. I think we need to approve this. I think gone potentially are the days of people having to trek all the way to the city of Perth to protest. I mean, you can't get a train these days, let alone a bus. So how are you going to get 1,000 people into the city from this neck of the woods? Very, very difficult. We have the town centre, and we have the amphitheatre frequently has thousands of people through it for our events. The infrastructure is there. Yes, there are risks. Yes, things could go wrong, absolutely. But there are measures put in place through the police permit process, through the requirements that come with this permit, which manage most of those things. So I'm comfortable that we prove this. In this instance, I think we need to come together and have a policy so that we don't come to council every time someone wants to have a protest or a vigil, and it can be as robust or as limited as we as a council decide. But for now, we've got this proposed demonstration, vigil, whatever we want to call it, in 4 days. Let's give them some assurance as to what's going on, as long as they meet the requirements that we've laid out. I'm for it, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Hort is the seconder. Councillor Islam as the seconder. Would you like to speak?
Thanks, Madam Mayor. Just want to call out for, I think it's the time to be united since we made the decision to grant the protest. I think we just need to sit down together as all the councillors and then move forward. So I will strongly encourage all the councillors to support for this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Islam. Councillor Dewhurst, thank you.
I'll speak against. Councillors, I've got to really think about this because I don't want to be pulled up in the point of order. But one must be, get ready, one must be very naive why this has come to us as councillors. Because usually these guys up here make the decision who hires and who doesn't hire it. You know why they've given it to us? Because they don't want the liability. So you guys have accepted the liability on this and you haven't listened to the advice of 2 seasoned police officers and someone who works in the game. Again, councillors, I'm just by disbelief. But in hearing also what Councillor said, Islam said, sorry, is I do hope it goes wonderful. I really do, from the deepest of my heart. I hope it goes like a wonderful time. They really enjoy it, and they're going to have some Aboriginal dances down there. They're going to have some other multicultural stuff down there. Hopefully they got food. Unfortunately, I can't go, so I'm taking my dad away for the long weekend. But I do hope it does go really, really well. Thank you very much, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Hurst. Is there any...
Point of clarification, Madam Mayor. What liability does council take if something untoward occurs at this?
Thank you, Mr CEO, if you could answer that question. Thank you.
Look, it sort of depends. I would have thought there's limited, and obviously we've got insurance for a range of things, but we make decisions all the time which affect people's lives. You know, that's the nature of the role.
And a follow on from that, in case council meant entire city, what about councillors?
Will we see? I don't think we'll see any of you in jail. I think is the look again. It's when we talk liability, it's somebody's going to have to obviously bring a case against us, and they're going to have to prove that you were, or we were as a group, in some way negligent. I think we've been diligent in what we've done. We've looked at things. There's been differing views, but they've been debated by councillors. Is the process in Western Australian local government, and you are making a lawful decision that you're entitled to make. So, yeah.
Thank you. And Councillor Lloyd and then Councillor Williamson.
I just have a question. If we don't grant this tonight, can they still go ahead with it anyway?
Thank you, Councillor Lloyd. Mr CEO.
Well, they'd be operating without a permit, but can they come together people come together on city property, but they will be operating without city permit to formally allow them to come together.
Thank you. Follow-up question?
So then in that instance, would that reduce our liability then if we don't grant the permit and we just allow them to gather? Or not allow anybody and keep our hands off it?
Thank you, Councillor Lloyd.
Madam Mayor, my view is that council needs to establish a policy for the city, which I can then deliver on with the staff in terms of how we want to deal with this. And I think that the point that we've tried to make through this is that the way our local law is structured is that they require a permit to operate, and we need to decide whether we're going to give them a permit or not. As I say, I think without reflecting too much on the local governments, as I understand it, City of Perth's local law, effectively says the same, but Perth operate in a different way. I don't, it is our local law that requires a permit, and I think that's what council needs to decide. Do you give them a permit or not?
Was next, thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just wanted to state on record that personally, I believe I've acted in good faith, and I believe the councillors around me that will support this permit have acted in good faith and met their duties. We've relied on all available information that's been presented to us, and that was presented factually without emotions attached to them. We've referred to the police permit conditions, which again are based on fact and written evidence. I think we've given it due consideration. We've sat here and we've debated it publicly, transparently and openly. I think we have fairly met all of our obligations if we support this permit, and I do not believe that we're opening ourselves up to legal liability. We've asked all the questions, we've made all the inquiries, and we're basing our decision on what's available to us now. So I think any comments to scare us are just that. They're simply scaremongering you to persuade you not to support this permit. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Williamson. Councillor Dewhurst, you have a question?
I have. It's a question through you, Madam Mayor. You can direct it to whoever you want to do. And the question is the knowledge of our directors of private litigation. And the thing that I ask is that I heard the CEO say that the very limited liability for us. So the question is, if I was a lawyer standing in a court for private litigation, and I've seen a fair bit of private litigation through the work that I do, and if there was an emergency where someone had hurt themselves, and I'll give you an example, say 40 people decided to sit on our swings because they wanted to get a good vantage point, that swing collapses, we're still liable. Under the law in Western Australia, we're liable. And the first thing the lawyers, you're going to say, oh, we're not liable, it doesn't take 40 people. First thing they're going to ask, Madam Mayor, do you think they will actually ask, where's your risk assessment? Where's your risk assessment for that day? And we're going to say, we didn't have one. Oh, it was brought up, but we decided to dismiss it. Do you think we'll be liable then? Because I know how private litigators work. They're nasty, nasty people. And just to put a hashtag around, they've got some mates who are private litigators, and I'd love them to death. But anyway, but I'm saying, the question is, private litigation, and the fact is that we can be individually sued as councillors. And did you get the question? Did CEO get the question?
Question is,
do you want me to ask it directly?
The question is, can councillors be privately...
No. The question is that under private litigation, if you haven't taken every step to look at possible scenarios, which we've decided to reject tonight, right, through risk assessment, do you think a private litigator will go us under that component of that risk assessment? And we're in court at the moment with the city on another matter, and I know what they're doing. They're hunting for money. So can you answer the question? Is under the private litigation?
Thank you, Mr. CEO.
Madam Mayor, I can't really answer the question because, yes, anybody could decide to litigate depending on something that may happen, which we've got no idea what it is. But is there a chance that somebody could litigate? Potentially. Is there a chance they could be successful? It depends on what the issue is. So I think, we're talking about a whole range of ifs, but certainly I would agree with Councillor Dewhurst that lawyers can can raise all matter of issues that you didn't think were reasonable. But do I think we've been reasonable in our approach? I think we've been very reasonable in our approach. So,
Thank you.
which is
Question for the CEO as well, would you mind? Do you mind, or do you want to ask your next question? Go on, for your follow-up question, thank you.
Madam Mayor, to the CEO, to Mr Bradbrook, are you aware that currently Carrican is being sued by a volunteer who was on their third day, who was told not to catch birds, not to touch the net, because they hadn't been trained in it? Were you aware that we've got processes and procedures and policies about who can actually catch birds and all that? Are you aware that the person fell over and broke her ankle? Shoulder. Broke her shoulder. And we are liable. In fact, they're currently trying to sue the city as well, and the city's got nothing to do with it. So they probably won't have to pay out. But our lawyers have told us we will be liable, even though we've done everything.
Not aware of all those extra bits. I was aware there was something happening. If you were asking me, if you're asking the CEO. Yeah. So, can I ask my question now? Mr CEO, this is our agenda from tonight and all these things we've voted on it. Can you find me the risk assessments in there, please?
no.
No, because there aren't any. This is our agenda from this evening, all of the things that we've voted on, and I asked the CEO if he could point out a risk assessment on any of the agenda items that we've voted on tonight, and there aren't any. So this risk assessment. Mr Dewhurst, we have another question.
I do have another question. How many, Mr CEO, through the Mayor, respectfully, of those items, how many of those items got 1,000 people gathering on a 35-degree day with easterly winds blowing?
Dewhurst knows what the temperature is going to be on Saturday. Amazing.
Madam Mayor, I couldn't actually say what the temperature is going to be. I haven't looked at the long-range forecast, but
yeah, I think that we need to come to an end on this, unless you've got a question, Councillor Islam.
Yeah, thanks, Madam Mayor. Just a question is about the process. I believe the decision that we make tonight is reviewable by in the Administrative Appeal Tribunal. Just want to understand the process, if cities are aware about the process and the money it may involve that we may have to pay if the organiser do take us to the court. Thank you.
So you're saying if we don't issue the permit that they could take us to the State Arbitration
I guess in the
Tribunal? Is that what you're asking?
Yes, I guess in the report it says it's reviewable. Yeah. They have a right to review it in the Administrative Appeal Tribunal. I just want to understand if cities are aware about the process and also how much money it may cost us, our city.
I'll give the CEO the answer to that. Thank you.
Yes, the answer is decisions council make which are unfavourable to people, either the absolute decision or putting a condition on can be appealed, and the cost could be dependent on the nature of the defence we've got to bring.
Councillors, can we bring this to a close if there's no further debate? Councillor McDonald, and then...
Just a point of order, Madam Mayor, if I may.
Yes, thank you.
I just refer to Standing Orders 7.18, adverse reflection, where it requires a member is not to impute, not to adversely on the character or actions of another member or impute any motive to a member, and is not to use offensive or objectionable expressions.
Is this me when I talked about Councillor Dewhurst knowing what the weather forecast was going to be?
Negative, no. The point that I was raising was that Councillor Williamson referred to scaremongering, which I found objectionable because it was broadly referred to people who are expressing a point of view on the other side of the debate. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Could you just hold one second? Councillor Williamson, would you be interested in removing your use of the language of scaremongering for the record, please?
I will remove the useful word of scaremongering, but I really don't like being called neglectful either, or negligent, or opening us up to liability. So, thank you.
Thank you. Moving on, Deputy Mayor Hort, did you have something, you're closing the debate or you've got a question?
Yes, please, I'll close the debate.
Is there any further on this before Deputy Mayor Hort? Councillor. Thank you, Deputy Mayor.
Still in support of this. I think thanks to the CEO for making it clear around where it sits with liability and the like. We make a lot of major decisions. In fact, there is I think there's a 1,000-person grant application in there. I think the point for me around the risk management and assessment is that it's quite a thorough process in the police permit process, which gives me a lot of comfort. So I just want to give councillors some comfort that I feel like we've dotted the I's and crossed the T's on this, and like Councillor Williamson said, we've acted in good faith if we're approving this with the information that we've got to give these people an opportunity to hold a vigil or a protest or a multicultural event. I'm still not really 100% sure on the correct noun.
Point of order, Madam Mayor. I just wanted to do clarification.
Order.
Point of order, 7.16. Very clearly states it's a rally. It's not a protest, not a vigil, it's not a prayer meet. It's actually a rally. That's what it is.
He's concluded. He's concluded. So
Yeah, I'll let you finish up. Thank you, Deputy Mayor Hort. Which I think you had finished.
I think it says a community solidarity stand is what's in the email. So yeah, Madam Mayor, I'm still in support of this. And councillors, I think for many who are new councillors to this council, these types of robust debates are normal. It's part of our healthy democracy. Don't be afraid of it. Don't be afraid of some of the emotion that's been showed here tonight, and come out the back and we can have a drink, have a slice of cheese and have a chat and a debrief about it all. So don't be scared. This is all part of life on a council. It's all done in respect, in my opinion. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Hort, could councillors please cast their vote on granting the permit? Thank you. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Councillors, that has been carried. I got him. Yes, thank you. There is no... I declare the meeting... This brings us to the close of tonight. I declare the meeting closed at 9:50. Thank you very much, councillors, and to the gentlemen in the gallery that have stayed and listeners at home.